Part 240. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2397. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Find the latest chapter. Immediately after death, another powerful person will come. It may be the black sheep herself, or it may be the stronger domain master of that force. That is a more terrifying existence than the Zerg Queen in her heyday. Silence, long silence. Ruka, who was still a little worried at first, saw that the scene suddenly became peaceful because of his words. He took a long breath from the bottom of his heart, and then laughed ferociously. Since you two dare not take action, and others do not dare to take action, then let the Queen of the Zerg come forward and explain it to me. He was smiling wildly. This is so exciting. In the past, they could only look up to the top of the two mid-level galaxies, and even the Queen of the Zerg. Now, they are no more than a small mid-level galactic being, drinking and threatening them single-handedly, but there is no one dare to speak. Not only were the strong men at the top of the two middle-level galaxies, on that planet, he also sensed several other mid-level galactic strength auras, plus more than a dozen primary-level galactic auras. Obviously, this kind of existence can all deal with he poses a threat and even harms the powerful, but none of these creatures came forward to speak at this time. They were waiting for the Zerg Queen, who was definitely trying to find out what was going on outside while recovering from her injuries, to come forward in person. Whether it is fighting or making peace, even just talking, it will affect the Queen's recovery. This is the current tragedy of the Zerg Queen force. Ha, Ruka, who told you that no one in my Zerg Queen's power would dare to attack you? When this mid-level powerhouse of the galaxy smiled wildly at the entire patchwork planet and wanted to force out the Queen of the Zerg with his mere mid-level status of the galaxy, there was a sudden sound in the subspace. There was a soft hum. In an instant, this Ruka suddenly took a few steps back like a cat whose tail was stepped on. These steps were dozens of kilometers away. Who? Come out quickly. Ruka was shocked. You must know that his feeling towards the people from the Zerg Queen's force was as if he knew that the other party did not dare to do anything to him, and had a hold on the other party's life. Only then did he dare to accept such a dangerous mission. The goal was to let Lord Black Sheep see his benefits and importance. But what I didn't expect was that there were actually remnants of the Zerg Queen's power here, who dared to resist me. And, subspace. Thinking of the subspace, this being seemed to have thought of some bad thought, but the thought only flashed across his mind, and he tried his best to get the thought out of his mind. Because he, the black sheep behind him, and more power lords all believed that the terrifying creature had already left this place. With that terrifying departure speed, even if it left a certain distance and then returned, it would not be possible. Maybe he'll be back soon. Of course, he had not thought that the existence would leave a clone, nor had he thought that the existence's current subordinate, the Rita creature that made the noise, would also stay here. Buzz. A huge gap soon opened in the subspace. Under everyone's attention, two creatures, one large and one small, walked out of it. Who? Ruka, you don't even recognize me, do you? The speaking creature became extremely clear in the eyes of all the powerful creatures, but because of this clear picture, they were completely in disbelief and stared. Especially the remnants of the Zerg Queen's forces, including two strong men at the top of the middle-level galaxy, looked at this creature in shock at this moment. It's not that its strength is so great, but because it looks familiar. We are all galaxy-level powerhouses. Naturally, we have interacted with each other in the past. How could they not know Leda, who is not too strong, but at least has mid-galaxy level strength? Leda stepped out of the subspace with a calm step, and beside him, although there was a not too big creature, and at the first impression, he knew that it was only a star-level creature, so he was not taken seriously by others. Star Powerhouse. This stellar powerhouse followed Leda out of the subspace. Even though he was not too far behind, he was still ignored by everyone present. Because it is too weak, the star level is nowhere to be seen in such a scene where galaxies are everywhere. What Leda said just now caused everyone present to chew on it after seeing him. Especially Ruka, whose expression suddenly changed when he saw Leda, and then became sinister. Others don't understand, but how could Ruka, who came from the outside world, not understand? Leda's strength is similar to him, but the problem is that Leda has become very popular in the outside world some time ago. Because he is a subordinate who follows the Domain Lord in the subspace. Even up to now, the Domain Lord himself has not come out to deal with external forces much. It is all the strong man from the former Zerg Queen's force who is taking care of it, so he has already gained a good reputation. Your Excellency Leda. Hey, Sir Leda, I haven't seen you for a long time. I think we had a pretty good relationship back then. The moment the Ruka Galaxy mid-level powerhouse saw Leda, a lot of thoughts came to his mind, especially when he thought of the territory lord behind Leda. He felt chills all over his body, and he suddenly stopped thinking about it. So strong. Oh. Ruka, why are you so nice to me? Weren't you so rude to Master Zykan and others before? Leda only found it funny and stared at the embarrassed Ruka playfully. Haha, I'm kidding, Mr. Leda. Today's Zerg Queen has reached the edge of deviance. Naturally, I will be a little bit angry with it. But like me, you are already a smart person who has taken a different approach. I am generally very polite to smart people. It's respectful. I wonder why Mr. Leda appeared here this time. Didn't you leave with that adult? Ruka smiled apologetically. To be honest, the reason why he dared to be so presumptuous in front of the Zerg Queen and others was not because of his strength, but because he had the backing behind him. But facing Leda today, he really doesn't have that much confidence. In terms of personal strength, he is almost the same as Leda, but when it comes to the backing behind him, a mysterious and powerful Domain Lord is in Leda. With support from behind, he felt that if the strength of the mysterious territory lord was really as strong as the brainwave power he released, he might not dare to provoke him, not even the black sheep. Therefore, his attitude towards Leda is better than towards the two injured mid-level peak giants of the Galaxy Queen. Even a little groveling. Seeing this scene, the remaining people present from the Zerg Queen's forces felt strange for a while. Especially Zykan, who had just been teased, looked down upon and even threatened by Ruka in front of his face, was extremely surprised. They are also familiar with Leda, and there was even a hint of Leda leaning towards the Western group before and becoming a helping hand for a certain force outside the Western group. After all, Leda used to be within the Zerg Queen's force, and he was also a galactic mid-level, although he was not as good as not a giant, but enough to refuse to become one of their direct subordinates. It can only be said that he is leaning towards the Western group. But those are all irrelevant. After arriving in the central star field of the Milky Way, the previously clearly defined levels of strength and weakness, as well as the seemingly huge level differences, became less clear after arriving here, and the peak of the middle-level galaxy was also he won't be as proud as the outside world, and as Ruka said, Leda solemnly said goodbye to everyone more than a year ago. He said he wanted to break into the outside world. To put it bluntly, Leda had already informally separated from the Zerg Queen force at that time, but she did not fall out. But now, how is this going? Leda, who had been away for more than a year, returned from the outside world. He did not show any disapproval of the Zerg Queen's power. It seemed that his mental outlook had undergone earth-shaking changes. Of course, what surprised them the most was why Ruka, who was so aggressive, had such respect for Leda. I no longer dare to speak loudly. Who is the adult in Ruka's words? Could it be that it was because of this so-called adult that Ruka respected Leda so much? Then what kind of existence is needed to make Ruka respect him so much? You know, behind him is a black sheep, and behind the black sheep is the local force with a powerful domain lord. Today's Ruka dares to confront the Zerg Queen kept her voice low, precisely because he felt that even if the Zerg Queen regained her full strength, she might not dare to attack him. And that inexplicable sir actually made Ruka bow his head? Huh? Ruka, how can you slander a good person? When did I, Leda, say that I left the Zerg Queen's force? I have always been a member of the Zerg Queen's force from the beginning to the end. Previously I just went out to explore areas. Also, did you actually say that you joined other forces? It's really disappointing. I didn't expect that after more than a year, our Zerg Queen force would become so disintegrated, right, sir? Leda seemed extremely distressed, shook his head, and deliberately asked Jia Yan beside him. And because of his question, all the biological experts who were observing him, one or two, all turned their attention to the adult in Leda's words. At this moment, everyone was looking at the star who accompanied Leda as he walked out of subspace. You must know that in the current situation, ordinary star-level people have no sense of existence at all. To put it harshly, those strong men at the peak of the middle-level galaxy may blow a breath when they are in their prime state. A star was blown to death. Therefore, it is impossible for anyone to value a stellar powerhouse. But because of Leda's words, everyone suddenly turned their attention to him. If an ordinary star-level powerhouse is watched by so many star-level powerhouses, he will definitely become very angry. It's only right that he was so flattered that his body was seriously injured even under the huge pressure. But the problem is, this star didn't, not to mention that he was in good health, not even a trace of mental stress could be seen. In this case, either this star's mental state is extremely good, or he is a fool. Of course, how could a creature that Leda still calls sir in this situation be a fool? So he will only be the former. It's such an outstanding star class. It doesn't feel unnatural to be stared at by so many galaxy class. Could this be the heir of a strong man? Only the heirs of a strong man can raise younger generations who are not afraid of the aura of a strong man. Hey, Leda just called him sir, so he must be the junior of a big shot, and judging from Ruka's appearance, it seems that Leda has become the subordinate of a strong man. Great, Leda has come forward now, maybe we can avoid certain troubles. Leda has only been out for a short time, but he is doing so well. It seems that the fate of life cannot be measured by common sense. If I had known, we should have thought differently. This guy already knew that he didn't leave because he wanted to escape. I didn't expect to find reinforcements from the outside world. I really blamed him wrongly. Within the Zerg Queen's force, all the galaxy-level people were shocked for a long time. As for the Ruka, after looking at Jia Yan for a while, he saw the clone of Jia Yan, whom Leda called Sir, shook his head and sighed longly. His sigh was a sigh for everyone present. In fact, he was familiar with every one of them. Even among the strong men brought by Ruka, most of them were from the original Zerg Queen's force, even if some of them were recruited in the central star field of the Milky Way. They are subordinates, but they all seem to be acquainted with each other. But it's a bit sad that a group of acquaintances like this are fighting in the same room. Okay, Rita, you don't have to add fuel to the fire anymore. He calmly flew over Leda and flew towards the Ruka not far in front of him. A creature that is only a few kilometers in size flies towards a mid-level powerhouse in the galaxy that is dozens of kilometers in size. This scene is a bit strange. Your Excellency. What do you want to do? Ruka was a little surprised at first, but when he saw the star level, he actually braved a middle-level galactic powerhouse who was far more powerful than himself to come. He showed no respect at all. He suddenly felt ashamed and felt that he had been betrayed. A weakling scorned. In the universe, no matter how high your status is and how tough the backstage is, if you despise a strong person, that strong person will have a reason to kill you on the spot. Of course, will it happen in the future? When being chased by a strong person, it depends on whether the strong person behind the weak person values the weak person. In short, it is unreasonable for a weak person to be presumptuous in front of a strong person. No matter what you say, it will be approved by others. So Ruka was angry. It was okay to be ignored by someone of the same level as Leda, but to be ignored by a star-level kid who was far weaker than him was something he couldn't bear. Little guy, don't think that with Leda taking care of you, you can act recklessly in front of a group of galaxy-level people. Stop. Otherwise, I will injure or even kill you for disrespecting the strong. Speaking of which, everything is my truth. Ruka was drinking fiercely, and at the same time there was a faint riot of energy, as if he wanted to scare away the little guy who was coming. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record this reading. Chapter 2320. Your Excellency, what do you want to do? Come to Kidian to subscribe, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Rebirth of the Giant Mosquito in the Starry Sky, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2398. But at this time, Jia Yan had already flown to a distance of less than 10 kilometers from this strong man. If Ruka was dozens of kilometers tall, this 10 kilometers distance would be like standing in front of him. Ruka. Jia Yan shook his head and said softly in a tone of hatred that iron could not become steel. The Zerg Queen's power has evolved into this. To be honest, I am very disappointed. Not only for you and the Black Sheep, but also for them, and for Her Royal Highness the Queen below. He seemed to be stating a fact, and his voice was so calm that it made people feel scary. You're just a star, but you're so presumptuous. It seems I'm going to use my strength to show you the consequences of offending a strong person. Suddenly, Ruka seemed to have figured it out, more like he was irritated. He came to the Zerg Queen's power to threaten. If he didn't even dare to deal with a star-level threat head-on, how can we talk about threatening the Domain Lord-level Zerg Queen? As for the mysterious subspace powerhouse that might exist behind this stellar level, he didn't care. No matter how strong you are, you can't be too strong, right? If Master Black Sheep can't be defeated, then the man behind Master Black Sheep might not be able to defeat him. So he didn't care. In short, he first wanted to complete the tasks of himself and others. Puff. He saw a wave of brainwave power fiercely pouring into the star-level creature in front of him. If there were no accidents, it would be impossible for this creature to be able to block such a fierce force, so he was already imagining the next creature in front of him. Will die or be seriously injured. It's just a star level, but he dares to offend a galaxy level, and it's a mid-level galaxy existence. This is like committing a serious crime. As for whether this strong man who seems to have reached the peak of the star level has the power to resist him, he really has not thought about it at all. Even in the central star field of the Milky Way, even in the black hole area, even among the descendants of those powerful men with high energy levels, it is impossible for there to be geniuses who are at the stellar level and can compete with the middle level beings in the galaxy, because such geniuses are not just as simple as fighting across levels, but are directly lower than the middle level galaxy level in life. At both levels, anyone who can fight without being instantly killed by one move is already a top genius. However, he never thought that the stellar powerhouse in front of him was not a star at all. Even if the power he exudes is like a star, even if the whole thing feels like a hole, he is not. It's a clone of a Domain Lord level powerhouse who far surpasses Ruka. Of course, even if it is a Domain Lord level clone, even if it is Jia Yan, it is impossible to fight a galaxy mid-level clone with a star-level clone. No matter how strong Jia Yan's actual combat ability is, no matter how terrifying his energy control method is, it is impossible to win in the face of absolute power. If someone stands and lets Jia Yan's clone fight, it may not be able to break someone's defense. So, why did Jia Yan's clone dare to stand up? Apart from the fact that he is a clone and is not afraid of death, is there any other reason? Some. And this reason is the biggest reason why Jia Yan dares to send a clone, and it is also the source of his self-confidence. At the same time, this reason is one of Jia Yan's trump cards after having dominated the universe for so many years. Yes, this reason is exactly the positive and negative explosion that Jia Yan has always mastered. Oh, I'm really looking for death. From a distance, Leda smiled when he saw Ruka getting angry and attacking a being who looked like a star on the surface. The reason why he laughs is very simple, because he also knows what Jia Yan's backup plan is, and he also understands that even though Jia Yan just sent a clone at the moment, because of the ability of his real body and the combat effectiveness of the clone, he actually has it is too weak. It can even be said that it is difficult to find an opponent below the Domain Lord level. Because this kind of thing is too shameless. It is directly an explosive produced by the main body and used by the clone. Except that the reaction will be slower, resulting in a slower speed, and the explosion power is slightly weaker. This is basically equivalent to the arrival of the main body, right? This time, Jia Yan asked his avatar to bring some of the positive and negative explosive stones that were refined during the North Star period. They were super energy materials and were produced by North Star. The power they brought to this kind of explosives was absolutely outstanding. And the most important thing is that Jia Yan is really not afraid of consumption, because although the explosive stones he has made can be stored for a long time, these batches have been for a while and are about to expire. If they are not used before then, they will also just turned into useless minerals. Puff. Jia Yan's clone immediately felt an earth-shattering force that was about to crush him to pieces. The release of this power shows that the other party really doesn't care about the life or death of his clone and is ready to kill him in one breath. Sure enough, he is so arrogant that even I want to kill him, then, the murderer will always be killed. Puff. In the subspace, a passage that had been prepared for a long time, after detonating a small stone-like object, flashed out instantly. If this stone-like thing were placed in the northern superstar, it would really be just a stone. But if placed in the outside world, after unique energy expansion, it has grown into a large material 300 to 400 meters in size. Of course, compared to the size of living things measured in kilometers, it is nothing at all. Huh? You actually have the ability to fight back. Yes, you are a bit underestimated by a mere star level, but what's the use of your counterattack like this? Ruka really doesn't believe that the mere star level in front of him can really pose any threat to himself. After all, the levels are too different. Even if the origin of the star level is relatively unusual, that's all. That's all. The only means a star level person can possess is to use something from a strong person. Even then, it is impossible to bring out the strength of a strong person. In fact, this is also true. When you reach the level of a strong person, there will be a very clear dividing line between energy and combat effectiveness. Even if a weak person uses the strong person's weapons or other energy, it will be weakened unconsciously, and the effect will be greatly reduced. However, Ruka missed the calculation. The star level in front of him was not a weak person at all, but a clone of the strong person himself. Even if the effect of the subspace objects he used was somewhat weakened, it was definitely not unacceptable. Call out. When the power of Ruka's head had increased to something similar to the strongest he could use, and when he was about to crush the small star-level insect in front of him to death in one breath, the object several hundred kilometers in size in the subspace, it has been inexplicably accelerated to the fastest speed that a mid-level powerhouse in the galaxy can use. What? So fast? But the attacks of the weak are the attacks of the weak. I don't believe it will have much impact on me. At this moment, he finally discovered the difference, but the pride of being a strong man in his heart made him give up dodging, and instead fought with Jia Yan in exchange for injuries. But even more unbelievable things happened one after another. The already accelerated attack, after accelerating to the attack speed of a mid-level galaxy powerhouse, actually did not stop accelerating. It instantly broke through the maximum speed that a mid-level galaxy powerhouse could use, and then directly turned into a galaxy mid-level powerhouse. The attack speed can only be used by the top experts. Who? This time, without waiting for Ruka to react further, in an instant, the ordinary meteorite-like object flew out from the subspace. How can it be so fast? Hey, why does this move look like something I've seen before? Chia. This piece of stone material flew out, and it was like a stone causing thousands of waves. Not only did Ruka be shocked for an instant, but even the people around him, both the enemy and ourselves, were extremely shocked. At the same time, some people with sharp eyes saw a certain familiar feeling from this move. Among them, especially those who have fought with Jia Yan, and those who admire Jia Yan, are extremely familiar with the moves he uses in battle, but they also smell a certain fighting routine that they are all quite familiar with. Subspace implodes and ejects matter. Isn't this Master Jia Yan's method? If this object can explode, that's a sure thing. But they definitely don't see the use of explosions anymore, because Jia Yan's antimatter combat methods have become quite mature. There are special explosive objects that explode, such as bullet-like explosions, and explosive explosions. Dedicated individuals. This is an object that is shot out from subspace like a bullet. Its shooting speed and piercing ability are exactly like the strong version of bullets. Puff. Ruka felt that the object that was slow just now was shot directly in front of him from the subspace. At this time, his brainwave power did not even come close to Jia Yan's clone. This speed has already exceeded the speed of the mid-level warriors in the galaxy. Even if Ruka was prepared from the beginning, it would be almost impossible to dodge. Then he felt that the shooting object had penetrated his body, causing tearing injuries, and leaving indelible brainwave damage in the injured areas of his body. So, it hurts. Ruka has probably never suffered such pain in his life, because it is a fatal injury. He stared blankly at the star-level strong man in front of him, feeling that his lifelong understanding and definition of a strong man seemed to have been overturned. However, in a daze, he turned his gaze further back and looked at Leda in this battle respectfully. This guy seemed to have not questioned the star powerhouse around him from just now. He was completely it's not like the attitude towards a junior. Could it be that, this star level is not a star level at all, but the clone of a strong man? In an instant, Ruka thought of the key point, and it was the correct answer. If he were not the avatar of a strong man, a person with Leda's character would not be so respectful at all. As a former colleague, Ruka understood very well that Leda was also an arrogant person, so he could not be so respectful to an ordinary person. It is absolutely impossible for a weak person to be respectful. However, when I think about it, all this has nothing to do with Ruka's life. Jia Yan hated him for being the accomplice of a tiger, and wanted to intimidate the enemy, so he killed him with one blow without giving him the slightest chance. After this blow, Ruka was thrown backwards, and his huge body seemed to draw a long and shocking line in the starry sky. In the process of being thrown away, Ruka's life fire gradually extinguished. By the time he fell to a certain critical point and was flying in the universe, his life breath had disappeared. As for the brainwave power he used to attack Jia Yan, long before it reached Jia Yan's body, it dissipated because the master was hit by a terrible attack. There is nothing dangerous about all this. Ruka used brainwave power to attack, and Jia Yan took such countermeasures. There was no chance of being hurt by the opponent at all. As for if Ruka does not use the brainwave power attack method, then Jia Yan will also have other corresponding methods. In other words, even if he comes with a star-level clone, as long as the opponent is not at the Domain Lord level, there will be corresponding methods of dealing with it. After all, the current Jia Yan has not only improved in terms of physical strength. This kind of strength is reflected in all aspects, including opinions, understanding of combat, and understanding of combat timing and combat methods, all of which are far beyond those of ordinary domain lords. Therefore, there would be no surprises in his battle. Even if a domain lord level came, as long as he was not too strong, he would be sure to escape from the subspace with Leda. This is the level of combat power of a senior domain lord. Coupled with the terrifying subspace talent, even a mid-level domain lord would probably not want to provoke such a senior domain lord in subspace, because it is like a dogskin plaster and is quite difficult to deal with. Oh my god! This Galaxy Intermediate Fighting Star class, the one who lost, was actually Galaxy Intermediate. No, he is definitely not a star. Who is this? Either he is hiding his strength, or he is the clone of a strong man. But what kind of strong man can still use his clone when the energy level of the clone is only astral level? Killing a Galaxy Intermediate. Why do I feel like I still don't understand this world? Is this the strong one? Is this the central star field of the Milky Way? Did we underestimate the world too much before? The Milky Way is huge. The biological powerhouses around them all lost their voices collectively at first, and then after being stunned, the voices came out like a tide. Everyone felt that they had seen something that was impossible to believe. An existence with a stellar energy level killed a mid-level galactic person. Moreover, that Galaxy Intermediate was a creature they knew. He was even threatening them just now, a strong man who dared to challenge the top of the Galaxy Intermediate. Such a presumptuous but absolutely genuine Galaxy mid-level man died at the hands of a star-level being. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin U. Chapter 2399. It's too exaggerated, it's like seeing an impossible event, like a miracle. But after the mood came back from the dazed state, the people present finally came to their senses. After all, they are also strong, and they are also members of the Zerg Queen force that has been running rampant in the universe for a long time. They understand that it is almost impossible for a star to kill an intermediate star. So the next moment, they thought of another possibility, which was also the only possibility. This star level is not just a clone of a strong man, but he also has combat treasures for the strong man's body, so he can kill a mid-level strong man in the galaxy. In this way, things make sense. But, if the battle items in that space were used by the body of this creature, then the body of this terrifying star-level powerhouse, could it be a subspace talented creature? But this move is not from that person. Speaking of that person, everyone was startled again. People in the Zerg Queen's force don't know what's going on in the outside world because they are blocked in this space. But the group of traitors to the original Zerg Queen force brought by Ruka were all clear about it. They knew that Leda was following a very powerful domain master with subspace talent. But today, Leda came here again with the clone of a strong man, and the move used by this clone to kill Ruka was actually used by that person. Thinking about it again, it seems that the mysterious domain lord level powerhouse who came from the outside world also seemed to be using the subspace, and then Leda took refuge with him within a year. After that, the mysterious domain lord level powerhouse came to the outside world in the outer space. Have been looking for the Zerg Queen force. Generally speaking, for an outsider like Leda, even if he is a powerful mid-level star in the galaxy, it will not be a simple process to quickly find a force to join him in the central star field of the galaxy where there are so many powerful people. Not to mention that he had just joined a force and the domain master of that force was traveling with him. In addition, the Territory Lord has been tirelessly searching for traces of the Zerg Queen's force. If it is for some treasures of the Zerg Queen's force, this is too aggressive, unless the treasure is something extraordinary, but these black sheep, the traders around me, have never heard of such a powerful treasure on the Zerg Queen's side. The above are the two most questionable points. Originally they just made people have some doubts or confused thoughts. However, coupled with the clone of the strong man just now, he actually used the trump card of that person. To kill Ruka, an idea that made all the betrayers subconsciously arise suddenly appeared. Could it be that the mysterious Territory Lord and the person they just imagined could use the subspace explosion move are basically the same person? Otherwise, there are so many unexplainable doubts and no reasonable answers at all. If the mysterious and powerful subspace domain lord is that one, it would make a lot more sense. Within more than a year after Leda left the city, he found a reliable person to take refuge with. This completely makes sense because there was no need to take refuge at all. Everyone knew that Leda had interacted with that person before and even helped him do something. Something happened, which was why, after that person left, Leda became oppressed from all sides. And if after Leda left, it happened that the two parties had always been in contact, and they went to this person, and then brought her back to help the Zerg Queen. Then why did the mysterious Territory Lord keep searching for the Zerg Queen's power? Human reasons are completely straightened out. And then, in order to make outsiders misunderstand that he left, this strong man used his clone to take Leda and followed the team of betrayers under the Black Sheep to the nascent galaxy where the Zerg Queen and the others were. Makes sense. But everything can be explained, but there is one thing that cannot be explained. That is, if that person is the mysterious and powerful Territory Lord himself, his strength cannot be justified at all. When that person left, he was not as strong as the Territory Lord at all, and it seemed like he had been gone for a long time, but in fact, he had only been away from the Zerg Queen's power for 4 or 5 years. In such a short time, also in the central star field of the Milky Way, where there are many things, and placed in their original backward star field, sometimes they have to sleep for 4 or 5 years. And in such a short period of time, how could that person be promoted from the peak of galaxy intermediate level to Territory Lord? This is totally unexplainable. The huge gap in strength is also the reason why, although they had thought of that person before, they couldn't possibly think that the mysterious domain lord was that person. But today, the clone of the mysterious powerful man used his trump card to kill Ruka, which forced them to raise the suspicion. Because without the conjecture that the two are basically the same person, there is no way to explain it. It can't be said that the one taught his trump card to the mysterious domain master, right? Even if that person is willing, even if there are beings with the same talent, there are almost no creatures with exactly the same specialties. That is to say, even if that person wants to teach it, the mysterious domain master may not be able to learn it. Not to mention using a clone to perform such delicate operations. Therefore, one of the first betrayers to figure out the reason at the moment was also the vixen and tiger who came with Ruka. He trembled his arms and pointed in the air. After killing Ruka, he seemed to have done something trivial. Star clone. This is a star class, but everyone is not so familiar with such an existence. After all, even within the Zerg Queen's force, there are not too few stars. For the galaxy class, it is just a passerby. But Jia Yan, who was hundreds of kilometers away, did not ignore him. Instead, he turned his head calmly and looked at the star class who had no master. Oh, this friend looks familiar, but I'm sorry, I have forgotten your name. I wonder what you are pointing at me? Do you want to avenge Ruka? Don't dare. Sir. I just thought about whether you are the one. The star-level powerhouse was startled, and he waved his hands quickly, looking extremely frightened at Jia Yan's clone. That one? For a moment, everyone around them thought that these words had made them think too much. Even the powerful men on the Zerg Queen's side began to think deeply. However, Jia Yan still has no idea of revealing his identity at this moment. He found it quite interesting. Since no one has seen through his true identity, let's observe what the Zerg Queen's force looks like now. If it has become something he doesn't like, save them this time and go their separate ways in the future. The way is also a good practice. So he smiled and didn't make any response to the stellar existence saying that he was that one. Of course, this approach made others think too much, but unfortunately, Jia Yan did not give them a chance to verify. Jia Yan just said calmly, "Friends sent by Black Sheep, I think you have just been brainwashed by evil leaders such as Black Sheep and Ruka. Please don't run around, otherwise I will treat it as if you were the same. Those who are evil will be punished. Yes, yes. Be sure not to run around. Please forgive me, sir." We just listened to the evil words of Black Sheep, Ruka, and others. The people who were following Ruka all around suddenly nodded vigorously as if they had been granted amnesty. After all, they knew that even if there were Black Sheep or even a huge force behind them, they could not quench their thirst from a distance, so they might as well give in first. Let's talk about the future in the future. Jia Yan didn't care so much. After telling them not to run around, he turned his attention to the remnants of the Zerg Queen's force, which was also silent. Then he sighed. When the original Zerg Queen force came to the central star field of the Milky Way, they were so high-spirited and had many people. Especially in terms of manpower, it reached its peak during the battle with several major forces on the edge of the galaxy star territory. Even though Jia Yan was being hunted everywhere at that time, he still believed in his heart that the Zerg Queen was a behemoth, especially knowing the Zerg Queen's combat effectiveness. Even the territory lords of several major forces could be defeated. It took 2 territory lords to fight to a tie with the Zerg Queen. He felt that this was even more magnified. He thought that the Zerg Queen was very powerful. Even at this point, he had to when the Zerg Queen's forces were evacuated, they did not disappear. Although he later understood that the Zerg Queen could not withstand the siege of several major forces around her, and vowed to enter the more prosperous place in the central star field of the galaxy, she would definitely encounter more difficult obstacles. But I never would have thought that such a powerful Zerg Queen could become what it is now in just a few years since she left. Manpower is about 90% less. Except for some strong ones who still have a relatively large number of them, most of the star level and below star level creatures have been greatly reduced. Even those below half-star level are almost non-existent. It is unknown whether all of them have been destroyed. Even though they were eliminated, they still escaped completely. The huge patchwork planet has become very sparse, and the strong people have also spread out to live. It seems that people are already panicked and no one trusts each other. After looking at the low-level powerhouses, Jia Yan looked at the galaxy-level beings. Another long sigh. Although 1/3 of the galaxy-level powerhouses still remain, almost everyone is injured, and only a few kittens are uninjured. The Zykan giant who flew up was so powerful and wily when he faced Jia Yan, but now, he is the only top strong man who still has the strength to fight. Even Ruka dares to challenge him. It can be seen to what extent the combat effectiveness of Zykan has dropped. Another giant is the middle-level peak powerhouse of the galaxy who is guarding outside a large palace. Although most people can't tell what's wrong with him, Jia Yan can see that this guy has been injured to the point where it's not easy to fly. If you really have to force yourself to fight, it will be at the expense of your lifespan. After Jia Yan shook his head and looked at these powerful men, he finally set his sights on another place. That is the palace guarded behind by the giants, which is the core of the entire Zerg Queen force, and also the place where the only uncrowned king, the Zerg Queen, is located. Inside the palace, it was as calm as water, as if there were no living creatures inside, and not even much breath was leaking out. But after taking a few glances at the palace, Jia Yan smiled. Then, he calmly said to the palace, "My lady Queen of the Zerg, Since you have woken up, why don't you come forward to see me? Jia Yan's voice was quite soft and without any malice, but in the ears of the powerful men around him, it was like a thunderbolt from the blue. None of them knew that the Zerg Queen had any aura leaking out, but could this clone, who looked like a star-level warrior, actually be able to tell that the Zerg Queen had awakened in the palace? In addition to shock, it is more of a strange psychology. That is, now that the Zerg Queen has awakened from seclusion, is it possible for her to have a battle with the clone of this strange strong man, or even with the real body of this strong man? You know, even if the Zerg Queen is injured, she is still strong. And it is really strong. Even though this area is close to the center of the Milky Way Central Star region, among the many local forces, only the one that Black Sheep has taken refuge in, besides several other good leaders of the forces, are if they are sure to defeat the Zerg Queen, the other leaders of small and medium-sized forces will at best be on par with the Zerg Queen, and many even consider themselves weaker than the Zerg Queen. If the Queen of the Zerg clan wakes up, will she be able to compete with this strong man despite her serious injuries? If it can be done, then the people on the Zerg Queen's side will not be so afraid. After all, even if this mysterious powerful clone saved everyone's lives, no one wanted to see their lives taken into the hands of a strange being. There was silence for a long time, so long that many people thought that the powerful man's clone must have said something wrong. But Jia Yan's clone still looked at the palace indifferently. Then, when the Zykan were about to talk to each other, saying that the Zerg Queen was probably unconscious, a cold female voice echoed through the starry sky. "Your Excellency, pleased to thank you for rescuing my forces." Buzz. This power spread throughout the world. It was as cold as ice and at the same time gave people a spring-like artistic conception. It seemed to reveal the kindness of the master. It was both cold and kind, and the contradictory artistic conception was clearly revealed. Of course, outsiders don't understand the many distracting thoughts inside. They only know that the Queen of the Zerg is just as the mysterious powerful clone said, she is awake. And I don't know if she just woke up or if she was already awake when Ruka and others arrived and has been observing silently. After all, the Queen of the Zerg is also a being who is not good at expressing her emotions, anger, sorrows and joys. No one knows whether she will observe it when she wakes up, and whether she is still following her subordinates, whether she has two minds. Of course, Ruka was killed by the mysterious powerful clone, so observation was impossible. Vertex. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2400. When the familiar and distant voice of the Zerg Queen resounded throughout the world, Jia Yan sighed again, and finally these sighs turned into an extremely emotional response. Haha, between old friends, there is no need to say thank you. But as soon as these words were spoken, the voice of the Zerg Queen on the planet below paused slightly. The expressions of all the living creatures around him also changed. They heard a different meaning from the star-level creature who was the clone of the powerful man. That is, did this strange avatar of a powerful man really know the Queen of the Zerg? And judging from this feeling, it seems that it has a lot to do with it. But why does the Zerg Queen seem to not even know she has such a friend? Those present may be some of the remnants of the original Zerg Queen who came with Ruka, and there is a little bit of bold speculation. But the closer this guess came to reality, the more they felt as if they were falling into an ice cellar, the ice was biting to their bones, and they felt that they and others were doomed. Because if this creature is really that one, they can't imagine how fast that genius who was just promoted to the peak of the middle level of the galaxy was, and how powerful he is now. What's even more frightening is that the person who has an almost sworn hatred with their current nominal leader, the character Black Sheep who defected to the Zerg Queen after betraying her. If it was really him, how could they, the traitors, have a good ending? Forgive me for my blindness, who are you? Why do I have no memory of meeting you? The Queen of the Zerg is also a strong person with a calm temperament. After thinking for a while, she finally admitted that she did not know Jia Yan. You must know that you need some courage to say this, because the avatar of this strong man who comes is so strong, it can be seen that his true body will definitely not be inferior to the Zerg Queen, and may even be stronger than the Zerg Queen. If she admits it, I can no longer remember others. If this strong man becomes angry from shame, he will give the current Zerg Queen force another powerful enemy that threatens the entire crumbling force. But the Queen of the Zerg is the Queen of the Zerg. If she tells Jia Yan that she knows him in order not to offend Jia Yan will be disappointed. Of course, with her temperament, she couldn't say that. So Jia Yan smiled slightly and nodded. My queen, you don't recognize me now. It's too normal. If it were me in your place, I'm afraid you wouldn't dare to think that I am now the same person I was a few years ago. But, you might as well take a closer look at me. How dare you? If you zoom in and guess what, we really know each other quite well. He gave the Zerg Queen a big problem, causing silence in the palace below again. Jia Yan could feel that the opponent's brainwave power was full of confusion and weird emotions, and he scanned Jia Yan's cloned body up and down. He deliberately released some of the feeling of subspace talent. If the current Jia Yan's brainwave power has become less similar to the original due to his promotion to Domain Lord, then the feeling of space talent this time should not be bad. Too much. Sure enough, when the Zerg Queen's brainwave power was felt on her body, she was stunned. Then, the Zerg Queen's aura became obviously disordered. She no longer had the polite and careful probing, but became more in-depth. If it were another strong person, she might be probed casually like this. To annoy the remaining followers of the Zerg Queen around him, all had their eyes widened, and they were so frightened that they almost stopped calling out to the Queen. Even if there may be a little bit of a relationship, with how much you have forgotten about them, it's not much better, right? This is a being who can defeat the mid-level galaxy with his clones. To explore other people's secrets at will is like a provocation. Could it be that the Zerg Queen has a grudge against the other party? That's a big problem. The battle with the Black Sheep has already made this remnant miserable. They just want to recuperate here for a while and then choose an opportunity to escape. But if another strong man like this comes, the Queen's power really doesn't have to live anymore. All the strong men who followed the Zerg Queen felt a trace of despair in their hearts. Why did the Zerg Queen, a female strongman who was quite calm in the past, actually do such a thing today? Even if she had a grudge, she was now so powerful that she could not tolerate it. You have to endure it? They all had some doubts in their hearts, whether it was a mistake for them and others to choose to believe in the Zerg Queen instead of following the Black Sheep. But when everyone expresses that they cannot accept what the Zerg Queen has done, the other party will definitely be furious. They were surprised to find that the strong man who was being looked at unscrupulously by the Zerg Queen showed no anger at all. Instead, he looked at the planet below with great interest, allowing the Zerg Queen to continue to use her brainwave power to look at him. After a few more minutes, Jia Yan felt that his avatar was being looked at inside and out by his former boss. Only then did the probing brainwave power subside. Then, there was a long silence. Moreover, the silence lasted longer than the previous inspection. It was so long that Jia Yan even wondered whether the Zerg Queen was injured. However, the Zerg Queen was not seriously injured, but was so shocked that she could not speak to herself for a long time. When even the strong men around him thought that Jia Yan had done something to injure the Zerg Queen again, the beautiful female voice sounded in the starry sky again. I really didn't expect it. It's you. Ha ha ha, have you come this far? There was a sense of wonder and confusion in her voice, almost to the point of doubting the world. Naturally, others could not understand her thoughts, but they were all surprised as to why the Queen of the Zerg, who had always been calm and even more indifferent than the males, was so abnormal today, making several actions and words that they had never seen before. It was the same this time. Out of nowhere, such words that were difficult to understand came out, leaving everyone at a loss as to what to do. Besides, she said, it's actually you. In other words, this strong man is really someone the Queen of Zerg knows, and judging from the Queen of Zerg's attitude, it's not that she has forgotten this strong man, but that this strong man has changed too much, and he is not the same as before. Showing his true face to others makes them unable to recognize him. That's good. It's someone you know. At least you won't make the other person angry because of the behavior just now. It seems that the Zerg Queen didn't mean it, but the other person changed too much, causing her to lose control of her emotions. But why does the Zerg Queen, who is usually so calm, become in such a mood? This is so weird. Also, if it is someone the Zerg Queen knows, who is it? You know, in addition to the experience of the Zerg Queen in her hometown, the Zerg Queen's territory happened later. Almost all the strong people present had experienced it with her. They had never heard of anyone who the Zerg Queen had followed. Do you have such a good relationship with the Domain Master? Moreover, for such a powerful territory lord, his true form is at least as powerful as the Zerg Queen. If you put her back home, she would definitely be like the Queen of the Zerg, dominating countless star fields around her. But they have never heard of it, so they can only say that this strong man must be a strong man native to the galaxy's central star region, but the Queen of the Zerg herself is also the first time to come to the galaxy's central star region, and she is not separated from them much. Yes, how did we meet? It was like it had become a dead circle, leaving the other strong men present feeling dizzy and unaware of the facts. Yes, it's me. I didn't expect that the power of the Zerg Queen, which was so prosperous back then, would become like this. Black Sheep even broke up with you. Real things are different. Jia Yan knew that the Zerg Queen must have recognized her true identity through her subspace aura, so she nodded calmly and did not continue to reveal her identity. You understand, I understand, it doesn't matter if everyone understands it or not, of course, they will understand it soon. Jia Yan was a little curious about what everyone's expression would be like after they knew their true identity. He was also surprised to find that Narita, who was standing next to him, raised his chest at this time, as if he was guarding some big shot. Of course, it also showed that he was this big shot's capable subordinate, even if at this time, no one is competing with him for status, but Leda understands that as long as Jia Yan's true identity is exposed, those who had some friendship with Jia Yan in the past will come to compete for status. This is completely unacceptable to Leda. Things. Therefore, he must express his opinion now, otherwise he will not have so many advantages if he wants to snatch it in the future. Jia Yan just smiled and said nothing. Things are different and people are different. In fact, compared to our side, your side is the most different. Come down, your strength has reached this level now, you don't need to call me sir, just call me just my name is fine. The Queen of the Zerg obviously doesn't agree with Jia Yan, saying things are different and people are different, and you are the one who is the most different, okay. She couldn't help but be amazed. Because she already knows that this being is none other than the genius Jia Yan who was forced away from her Zerg Queen force by Black Sheep 4 or 5 years ago. The original Queen of the Zerg didn't want to help Jia Yan. In fact, she had already helped a lot secretly. If she were in the Zerg territory, she would have helped even more. But the problem was that they were in the central star field of the Milky Way at that time. The Zerg Queen's power at that time seemed to be relatively prosperous, but the Zerg Queen herself knew very well that the central star field of the galaxy was absolutely extremely dangerous and there were too many challenges. The Zerg Queen's force at that time could do without Jia Yan, a strong man who had just reached the peak of the middle-level galaxy, but it was indispensable that he was familiar with the affairs of the Zerg Queen's force, and there were many die-hard subordinates, and his own strength had reached the black level of the territory lord. Sheep. So she had no choice but to choose Black Sheep, otherwise by helping Jia Yan, the Zerg Queen might be in danger of disbanding. Of course, even if she chose Black Sheep at that time, just a few years later, the Zerg Queen's power was still on the verge of collapse, which even she did not expect. Good. Jia Yan couldn't help but look at Leda, who was as loyal as a guard beside him, and said, "Leda, I'm going to go down and communicate with the Queen of the Zerg. You wait here first. My body has already taken Eddie. Shaxing is coming, it won't be long before she arrives, you let them control these traitors." Yes. When Leda heard Jia Yan's order, he was extremely excited. At least this proved that Jia Yan would still choose him as his subordinate among his acquaintances, which was a good thing. As for asking him to give advice to others, even the two former giants at the top of the mid-level galaxy would have to listen, because beating a dog depends on the master, and his latest master is this mysterious strong man. Jia Yan flew down to the planet calmly. If we talk about the strength of the clone, it is definitely not as strong as the domain master. If the Zerg Queen wants to deal with his clone, she will definitely succeed. But just because it is a clone, he is not afraid. If it is destroyed, it will only lose some resources. So it's perfect to use a clone to take risks or something. Of course, he also believed that the Zerg Queen was not that stupid to actually attack his clone. She already knew his identity, Jia Yan, and had no reason to attack. Puff. After landing on the ground, Jia Yan felt that the entire planet was pieced together with tremendous force. Sensing the brainwave power on it, he sighed, because he could clearly feel that this aura that pieced together the planet belonged to the Queen of the Zerg. This Queen of the Zerg, even with Jia Yan's current strength, there are still some aspects of her that she admires, such as the creation of an intelligent race by throwing away the soil, and the subsequent creation of the brainwave power energy circle, plus today's plain and simple for no reason, using the power of brainwaves to piece together a planet larger than the Earth. It's really awesome. Of course, this does not mean that the Zerg Queen's combat effectiveness will be stronger than Jia Yan's current combat effectiveness, but the way she uses her abilities and her understanding of certain aspects are still far better than the current Jia Yan. After all, she is still young. There is an age difference, and Jia Yan's research directions are just different. Tread. Tap tap tap. Jia Yan's clone is a rock-like creature that causes the ground to shake when it walks. Obviously this planet is too shoddy. In the energy circle of the Zerg Queen, no one would buy such a planet. However, if it is placed here, it has become a temporary base for the entire remnant of the Zerg Queen. This shows how pitiful it is. Creak. The main hall is still a bit like it was before, but unfortunately, there is only one door. The building inside the door is not at all the giant hall with thousands of kilometers in the energy circle, but a larger space made of local materials and the power of brain waves. It's over 200 kilometers wide, and there can't be more than a few galaxy-level creatures standing in it. Opening the door of the main hall, Jia Yan saw directly inside. A dark, lifeless female creature, more delicate than the male creature, was crawling on the ground. Vertex. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2401. The huge stone man stood at the entrance of the palace for a long time. After a long time, he raised his feet again and walked into the main hall. Clang. The door slowly closed. I don't know if it was done by Jia Yan's brainwave power or by a female creature. After entering the gate, Jia Yan fell silent again. He just came to the female creature's body and looked at her silently. The Queen of the Zerg didn't say anything, she just prostrate like that, lying on the ground calmly, looking at each other with the familiar yet unfamiliar strong man who came. The injuries sustained by the Zerg Queen may be more serious than Jia Yan imagined. Her whole body seemed to have been dealt a devastating blow by some force, almost splitting her body in half. Fortunately, she used her own natural strength to maintaining the body's vital signs at an immortal stage can avoid the outcome of death. In fact, Jia Yan only slowly discovered in the later stages that the talent of the Zerg Queen lies in her vitality. This is why she was able to easily figure out the relationship between the intelligent races, and her long-standing combat effectiveness is also due to her strong vitality, and she has never died. Related. But this time the injury was so serious that she couldn't move easily. If the previous battle really affected her, she might have the strength to fight again, but after the battle, her life might end. Fortunately, Jia Yan showed up just in time to avoid his death. Jia Yan said nothing, and the Zerg Queen looked at him silently, without speaking for the first time. After a long time, Jia Yan finally slowly shook his head and sighed. Sigh, things are changing. Her Majesty, please take good care of yourself. If you need any help from me, just ask. In what Jia Yan said, he didn't dwell on past grievances, nor did he talk about anything else. He didn't even think about bragging about how strong he was now, or how the Zerg Queen had misjudged her back then. Because he is not that immature, the current scene is not the time to brag. People are hurt like this, but when you say so much, have you ever considered other people's feelings? The Zerg Queen raised her head, and the head of the human-like beauty raised a smile. Thank you very much, Jia Yan. For a moment, a feeling of spring breeze came over the two of them. Jia Yan remembered the first conversation with the Zerg Queen. At that time, she was extremely powerful and could create a race at will, which scared Jia Yan very much. He was frightened, but the chat at that time felt like it is now, extremely comfortable. Both parties did not even consider the question of who was stronger and who was weaker. The Zerg Queen's clone was quite good to him. Although Jia Yan's strength now far exceeds that of the Zerg Queen, he still has a similar feeling when chatting with her, which shows that this person is indeed a friend that can be made. Well, I believe that I have this ability now. Please tell me, Her Royal Highness the Queen, what is the current situation? Who are your opponents, what kind of strength they have before the separation, and what are their plans? Jia Yan nodded and preached with great confidence. His confidence comes from the fact that he is strong enough now. If he wants to say something that will make the Zerg Queen unhappy, it is an enemy that even the Zerg Queen can escape. Jia Yan does not like him at all, because he was now confident that he could kill the Zerg Queen in her prime within 1 or 2 blows. Of course, it's just talk, he won't do it. Sometimes in life, what is missing is friends, or confidants, otherwise wouldn't it be lonely? Although the Zerg Queen has had conflicts and various interests, she is still a true friend that can be made. Besides, people really helped Jia Yan when he was growing up, even quite a lot. Therefore, it is a normal idea to have the ability to repay others. When the Zerg Queen heard Jia Yan's confident statement, she involuntarily raised her head again and glanced at the stone man clone. This glance contained many meanings, not only surprise, but also a little loneliness, plus a hint of approval, and of course a little doubt. You know, this is an existence that can cause such harm to the Queen of Zerg. If the Queen of Zerg believes that Jia Yan is stronger than her, it is possible, because she knew that Jia Yan had amazing talent at the beginning, but she did not expect that he would be so talented so soon. Just a promotion. But if she were to think that Jia Yan was much stronger than her right now, even compared to the territory lord who hurt her, then she wouldn't believe it. Strong people all have to go through a process of growth. The Zerg Queen is like this, and Jia Yan is no exception. What's more, Jia Yan has been in the Zerg Queen's force for more than a day or two. What kind of talent he has, the Zerg Queen can tell you more clearly. Now being promoted to a territory lord, or being slightly stronger than an ordinary territory lord, is already quite surprising. If she still thought that Jia Yan was much stronger than the Zerg Queen, she wouldn't believe it. But after Jia Yan asked, she had to say that she could try to persuade Jia Yan again in the future. The Zerg Queen believes that since Jia Yan said he would protect the current Zerg Queen, he will fulfill his promise. Jia Yan is such a person. Then it's okay to talk slowly. After all, she is really curious about Jia Yan's strength and true abilities at this time. After you left, we went through several battles. My goal was to move along a path called the Galactic Central Expressway. Because there are gravitational fluctuations of the stars there, which can greatly reduce the navigation time, and because the state is unstable and there is no big force. But what I didn't expect is that just because there are few big forces and many merchant ships pass through, there are a large number of star pirate forces entrenched there. We encountered various harassments along the way. Countless. The master of one of the forces is a domain lord level powerhouse. He failed after fighting with us, but he was not willing to fail. Instead, he went to find a helper. He was the one who hurt me. The Zerg Queen spoke eloquently, but Jia Yan did not interrupt, nor did he ask anything he had questions about. Because the words of the Zerg Queen have already revealed enough and complete information. After all, she is a power lord with good speech and narrative skills. Jia Yan does not need to know so many details. He only needs to know the general process of the entire incident. Will suffice. Because after being hurt by the strong man, the Zerg Queen's power collapsed instantly, because most of the strong men in the Zerg Queen's power joined because of the charm and power of the Zerg Queen herself, especially those in the center of the Milky Way. The beings who joined the Zerg Queen's forces in the star territory had no loyalty at all. So after the Zerg Queen was seriously injured, they left the Zerg Queen's forces one by one. Moreover, because the Zerg Queen had to recuperate from her injuries, the top management also quickly turned into several factions. In addition, the territory lord who injured the Zerg Queen at that time was still pursuing her, which accelerated the disintegration of the Zerg Queen's power. The worst thing is that I don't know who said it at the time. Among our forces, there is a superstar core that allows high-level domain lords to practice, so the domain lord who hurt me chased me even more happily, even if after resisting his attacks several times, I was also injured, and even escaped from the passage and came near the starry sky. He was still chasing me, but in the back, because the more powerful domain lord in this area intimidated him, he didn't continue to fight, but he still had people keeping an eye on us, making it difficult for us to move. The Zerg Queen is bitter. Little did she know that after arriving in the central star field of the Milky Way, they would be nothing more than pawns between high-level forces. Even the forces that came to help them actually had similar thoughts, and someone from within the Zerg Queen's force secretly told the powerful man the information, and then the leader of the force took action, so that the pursuing domain lord did not dare to take action, but still watching eagerly nearby. The Queen of the Zerg actually knew the inside information and knew that the informant was the Black Sheep, but she pretended not to see through it and kept thanking the territory lord level being who saved them. It seems that they are not so eager to annex the Zerg Queen's power and property, because their goal is bigger and they need to digest all the strong men and subordinates within the Zerg Queen's power. So, the Zerg Queen, who pretended not to know, dragged her seriously injured body to fight several mercenary battles for the other party in the name of being grateful to the other party. After several events, the situation was evenly matched, and after the battle of injuries, her injuries finally healed. It was because someone else noticed it. Black Sheep finally launched a brazen action against the Zerg Queen. During that operation, Black Sheep pulled a lot of traitors from the Zerg Queen. Fortunately, the Zerg Queen had already known that Black Sheep would take action and had already guarded against him. In addition, there were also many old people here who insisted on standing. On the side of the Zerg Queen, the battle and conflict did not last long. Even the territory lord who supported the Black Sheep had no time to arrive. The Zerg Queen and others fled into this area along the path they had already found. A chaotic newborn galaxy. Jia Yan roughly knew what happened next. That territory lord is just one person who needs the resources and manpower of the Zerg Queen. Within this area, there are many creatures who want the so-called superstar core of the Zerg Queen's power. Although their top combat power may not be as high as that territory lord's as powerful as it is, but definitely not much different, otherwise it would have been annexed long ago. With several major forces restraining each other, it evolved into a situation where no one came to suppress the Zerg Queen's force at all, giving them a lot of time to recuperate. Of course, this little time and this little recovery are completely insignificant to those forces that want to take action, because this is only a short time. The Zerg Queen's force does not have many people, and it is impossible to recruit new people. With just a few old people and a seriously injured Zerg Queen, they naturally knew that even if they gave the Zerg Queen power for 100 years, it would not be possible. But here's the thing. These forces came one by one. They never expected that behind the Zerg Queen's forces, there was actually the existence of the mysterious subspace domain lord. You know, when this extremely mysterious subspace domain lord first arrived in this starry sky, he simply appeared in an image overlooking the entire region. That arrogant feeling is like a proof of his strength, because no one without strength would dare to act like this in the central star field of the Milky Way. Although no one saw him doing anything, everyone knew that this being was not easy to mess with, and besides, he was a strong person with subspace talent. Among all the strong talents, subspace talent and gravitational wave talent are known to be the most difficult to deal with. Just because their escapability is top-notch, it's useless if you can beat them, but if you mess with them and you can't kill them, just wait to be blocked and attacked by them every day. In history, many large forces were defeated by a mere subspace domain lord. An example of destruction, gradually no one dares to mess with the existence of subspace talent. So when that being was roaming around in this area, every force was like a trembling weakling, watching this strong man dominate. Of course, when he searched for information about the Zerg Queen's forces here, no force would obediently hand over clues. After all, everyone wanted a share of the pie, and they only wanted an outsider to take away their benefits for no reason. Not willing. And the true identity of this mysterious subspace talent domain master is naturally Jia Yan himself. After saying everything, Jia Yan pondered for a while, putting everything together in his mind. He couldn't help but sigh at the boldness of the Zerg Queen's power and her experiences over the years. To be honest, the Zerg Queen's forces have good ideas and sufficient actions, but they have no idea that the central star field of the Milky Way is not that simple a place at all. In fact, for Jia Yan, it is better for the entire force to occupy a place on the periphery. 2 places, and then send strong men to travel and explore the depths. Maybe a few good strong men will be born spontaneously like Jia Yan. It's a pity that the essence of a force is lost in that way. No one knows whether the strong will repay the force when they become stronger. Therefore, the Zerg Queen and the others may have thought of this and ventured into the depths of the central star field of the Milky Way. The result was obvious, even if they did not encounter the territory lord who was chasing them on the way. There will also be another territory lord chasing them later. Even if they are lucky enough to not be chased by the territory lord and let them reach this area smoothly, I am afraid they will soon become pawns of the big forces. The reason is very simple: lack of strength. I understand, Queen, please have a good rest. Leave the rest to me. My true body is coming soon. As long as my true body arrives, even if all the powerful creatures in this area take action, I will not be afraid. Jia Yan's words made the Zerg Queen look sideways again. She felt that Jia Yan had really changed. I never liked to brag so much before. Why have I become so bragging after not seeing each other for a few years? Of course she didn't understand, Jia Yan wasn't bragging at all. It's a pity that no matter how Jia Yan explains it, the Zerg Queen may not believe it. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2402. Since she doesn't believe it, she can only wait for the opportunity in the future and use actual events to convince her. And this incident will probably not take long. So Jia Yan stopped talking immediately. Why bother talking about something that can be proven with actions? Haha, in short, Your Majesty Queen, you don't have to be so anxious and panicked. I'm here for everything. Also, if you need any materials to repair yourself, you can also tell me and I will try my best to help you get them after the incident. It is quite normal for Jia Yan to repay the Zerg Queen for her previous contributions to him. On the contrary, the Zerg Queen felt unnatural. Firstly, because she also understood that she had treated Jia Yan badly in the past, but now she was treated so sincerely by Jia Yan, how could she not be embarrassed? The second reason is that she feels pitiful. The reason for this is that the Zerg Queen's status is too high and her talent is too strong. It seems that she has been in a strong position all her life, and there seems to be no serious return for what she gives to others. This is related to her status and strength. Related to improving too quickly. And there weren't many people who could help her when she encountered a real crisis, so suddenly she got such a huge and powerful helper, which caught her off guard for a while, as if she couldn't react. Of course, no matter how caught off guard she couldn't be considered a fool. In short, she just communicated with Jia Yan stiffly, and then accepted Jia Yan's help. If you don't accept it, there will be no other way. Even the Zerg Queen, who has a strong self-esteem, definitely doesn't want to do something like asking for help from others, which is what a weak person would do. But at this time, if the Zerg Queen's power does not have Jia Yan's help, it may be destroyed. In front of him, and when Jia Yan spoke, he preserved the face of the Zerg Queen to the greatest extent, and did not talk about what she was asking for at all. He only said that he could now be regarded as a part of the Zerg Queen's power. Since he was one of his own, then why can't we help our own people? So everything was taken for granted. After negotiating for a while, Jia Yan said that he would not disturb the Zerg Queen's cultivation and asked her not to worry about anything in the outside world. He would take care of it. After that, Jia Yan withdrew from the palace where the Zerg Queen was training. In the outside world, the people from the Zerg Queen's forces had gone through the initial panic and strangeness, and quickly gathered around Leda. Even the two top mid-level giants of the galaxy, who were originally important figures to Leda, flew to Leda's side and asked who the mysterious strong man who followed Leda was. It is not that no one among them has thought about the possibility of Jia Yan, but this possibility is too exaggerated. They would rather believe that Leda's personal charm is too great. After leaving the Zerg Queen's power for more than a year, he found an extremely terrifying backer. And got the approval of this patron, and then Leda asked people to come over and help the Zerg Queen. Of course, this possibility is just like a fairy tale, but after all, compared to the mysterious strong man, Jia Yan himself is more trustworthy, right? It's just that Leda seems to be polite when he asks so many old friends around him, but inside and outside his words, he refuses to answer everyone's questions directly. First of all, Jia Yan did not ask him to tell his identity. Another point is that Leda has his own little thoughts. Others know that Jia Yan is already such a terrifying strong man. Maybe he has a good relationship with Jia Yan. Those who will immediately surpass himself in Jia Yan's mind. So, after asking for a long time, I still asked loneliness. This Leda, after not seeing each other for more than a year, actually learned how to put on a show. A creature of the first level of the galaxy felt dumbfounded when he saw Leda acting like a rogue. Of course, no one blamed Leda, because they had given all the credit for calling this life-saving strong man to Leda. How could they hate such a person who helped everyone so much? Moreover, it seems that Jia Yan will come to assist the Zerg Queen. In addition to what he really thinks, it is also true that Leda agreed after begging for a long time. Otherwise, he would be looking for the Zerg Queen and others, let alone finding clues. Even if I can find clues, I'm afraid it will be too late, and I don't know how many years it will take. Therefore, it is correct to regard Leda as one of his benefactors. Leda, I'll leave this to you. My real body will arrive around this area soon, but because the Queen needs some supplies, I will search for resources in the surrounding star forces before coming here. If there's anything urgent, just tell my clone. I don't have much energy next time, so I won't put too much emphasis on my clone. You can arrange the small things. Yes, sir. Leda heard the instructions from the flying figure behind him and quickly nodded in agreement. The one who flew up was the approaching Jia Yan, and while he was speaking, whether it was Leda or the creatures of the original Zerg Queen's force, even the traitors who had been controlled, all turned against Jia Yan. The avatar shows the highest respect. This is a respect for the strong. As long as you are strong enough, no matter what you do in the starry sky or where you go, you are worthy of the respect of any creature. After Jia Yan said this, he took a deep look at the captured betrayers. Some of them were even biological people he knew well. Unfortunately, none of them were familiar to Jia Yan. People. Well. After sighing, Jia Yan let this clone fly into the depths of space. In everyone's field of vision, space cracks suddenly tore open, and his whole body got into it. Within a few seconds, no one could his figure cannot be found. This was just like his words, making his clone enter a state of hiding, because Jia Yan wanted to control his real body to help the Zerg Queen search for the precious resources she needed. Of course, everyone knows what Jia Yan means by those words, that is, if an enemy comes and calls his clone, the clone will go out to fight, and the real body will also come. Others may still have some worries in their hearts. After all, it is the fighting power of the clone. They don't know how strong this strong man's real body is, but if he is a clone, his combat power will be at its peak, right? If someone really comes, they still don't believe they can stop him. But her true form is helping the Queen of the Zerg to search for the resources she needs. She has already helped such an area, so what else can she complain about? Don't worry, my master is very strong. Even just a clone can withstand the enemies under the territory lord. Leda comforted her surroundings. In fact, he wanted to say that Jia Yan's clone might be able to stop a strong person at the domain lord level, but he didn't dare to say this. He didn't believe this even when he said it, because even he didn't understand Jia Yan's true strength. What's more, his biggest source of confidence in Jia Yan's clone was that this clone had dozens of explosives made by his real body. That object is one of Jia Yan's trump cards. To put it bluntly, throwing the thing out like a grenade is almost not too far away from the arrival of Jia Yan's real body. At least it has less than half of the combat effectiveness, right? That's why he dared to say that even a star-level clone could stop the powerful men under the domain lord. But the territory lord is different, he doesn't dare to say such big words. And he knew very well that when Jia Yan said that he would help the Zerg Queen search for resources, others would definitely regard it as a big project, because the things the Zerg Queen needs are destined to be extremely rare and hard to find. Even if they are available elsewhere, they will definitely not be needed. It takes less time to do it. The above are other people's normal thoughts and judgments, but Leda understands Jia Yan's rules of conduct. Even in the outside world of this area, under the watchful eyes of so many forces, he dared to fight against all forces alone, aggressively demanding this and that, and considering that he was in the black hole area, he would fight whichever force he wanted. The forces, the alliance of forces guarding the gate, sent him away like they were sending off their ancestors. They knew that the search that Jia Yan mentioned was not an ordinary method. So whether it was a method of beating, smashing, looting, or intimidation, Leda didn't know, but he knew that he could not escape from these plans. If Jia Yan's strength is enough with this plan, the search speed will be it's extremely fast. Maybe it was done so fast that even the black sheep didn't even react. Above the planet, Jia Yan's departure, as well as the words of his subordinates and Leda, were all visible to a powerful creature's sensitive hearing. The Zerg Queen was speechless. To be honest, the impact of Jia Yan's arrival on others may not be half that of the Zerg Queen herself. Because she is a serious person, she has been observing Jia Yan since he was extremely weak. I remember that at that time, he was just a venerable person. He might not even be a venerable person, so his life energy clone attached to him to observe this possible genius. At that time, Jia Yan was just an observer among thousands of unique avatars of the Zerg Queen. But I never expected that a person who I thought had average talent would actually be promoted to this point in just 100 years, and seemed to be even stronger than the Queen of the Zerg herself. She was silent. For a moment, she felt that the world was unrecognizable, and felt an inexplicable joke. Then she felt that the world was too dramatic, and she felt a bit unwilling and frustrated. Of course, random thoughts are just random thoughts, and she still has some correct views. Jia Yan has returned to the power of the Zerg Queen all the way, and is still doing her best to help herself regain her strength and body. This is almost equal to the gift of reinvention. If the Queen of the Zerg still thinks Jia Yan is not good despite such a great favor, then she really does not know what is good and what is evil. But she naturally understood that if Jia Yan really helped the current Zerg Queen force and helped the half-dead self, then it would really be a great favor. Any kindness she had shown to take care of him in the past would still be enough. By the way, those few things that Black Sheep and the others are searching for can only be used by the powerful domain master. I don't know if he can use them. If he can use them, then give them to him. It would be a disaster for me to keep them. If you don't have the strength, having this kind of thing sitting in the central star field of the Milky Way is really killing people. It's better to give it to the person who needs it and sell him a favor. The Zerg Queen suddenly thought of what Black Sheep and other strong men had been asking for. In fact, it's not that the Zerg Queen refuses to hand over, but she has tested it before. Those forces actually intend to destroy the Zerg Queen's forces after asking for supplies, because naturally the fewer people know about this kind of thing, the better. So, if you make friends, you will die, and if you don't, you will die. It is better to keep it and wait to use it to curry favor with a stronger person in exchange for the other party's protection. This was the Zerg Queen's previous plan. The people who come to protect them now are not only strong enough, but also familiar with them, even if they don't give them supplies. Under such circumstances, if the Zerg Queen took out the things, wouldn't she replace them to gain favor? Jia Yan's strength is already certain. Even if the Zerg Queen feels a little unreal, she can only accept the situation. So it is logical for such a strong man to donate his treasure in order to make the relationship better. I didn't expect that there would be a day when I would offer a treasure to Jia Yan for self-protection. Haha, is fate playing tricks on people? Forget it, I'll give it to him when he can really find supplies for me to use. Thinking of this, the Zerg Queen shook her head bitterly, then closed her eyes on the beauty's face, and gradually fell into a deep sleep. Boom! In the subspace, a huge planet flying extremely fast flew through the deep levels of the subspace like an arrow from a string. Within the depth of 10 degrees of subspace, in fact, speed and slowness do not seem to have much meaning, because no matter how you fly, the scenery seems to be the same all around, except for the various equipment on the planet, which will display a large number of. Only by looking at the data can we see how fast it is at this time. Edisha, how long does it take to return to that area? Master, you can go back in 2 days, but don't you want to search for some supplies? Edisha found out that the area there is not a traditional trading place, and it is not prosperous enough. If you want to search for supplies, I suggest you stop at the Starry Sky a day and a half away. It is a good distribution center and has the title of the largest trade port with a radius of 50 light years. However, there are many strong people there, including even only someone as powerful as you, sir, can exist. Sir, would you like to see it? The little mosquitoes that Aditha transformed into were flying around in the sky, speaking out words from time to time. Jia Yan then looked at the virtual screen it sent to him, observed the data, then looked at the large number of material labels on it, and hesitated for a moment. Because there is indeed a lot of supplies there, and it is about 10 degrees of space distance in one day from the starry sky area where the Zerg Queen and others are located, maybe 2 or 3 light years, not too far, and they can provide timely support in case of any situation. The only problem is it possible that there is a strong man who is almost as powerful as me? In other words, I will encounter a strong man in the central star field of the Milky Way. Well, let's go and have a look. I think those friends will not fail to give me this face. I trade the goods from the black hole area. Vertex. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2403. Jia Yan didn't really want to grab it directly, and he didn't lack the trading supplies. After all, there were so many unused supplies on Edisha that he almost had no place to stay. So he might as well take advantage of this opportunity to trade. If you go out and follow the rules like this, you will provoke strong people. Then Jia Yan can only say that he is bullying himself too much. Even if there are strong men who are almost as strong as him, or even if there are several of them, he will smash it to pieces without any regard. Anyway, I am a subspace talent. Isn't there some data saying that even mid-level domain lord creatures don't want to provoke me like this? Humph, he's almost as strong as me, but that doesn't mean he can catch up with me. Very well, Edisha, let's go to that distribution center. I think everything the Zerg Queen needs can be gathered there. Okay. Deep in subspace, the huge planet turned and suddenly flew towards another route. The Eta domain is a relatively well-known trading center in the central star domain of the Milky Way. It is located near a good cosmic waterway. It has been extremely prosperous since ancient times, with many powerful people and merchant ships coming and going. However, because of the prosperity, it is really impossible for ordinary forces to rule here. Even because of a large number of interest disputes, if a single force controls this place, it will be attacked by groups. Therefore, over time, the forces here will quietly. A tacit understanding was formed. Everyone does not control this place alone, but has a tacit understanding of dividing it into traditional branches with a number of interests. Each force or strong person will monopolize a part of it, and no one else will encroach on its interests. If there is someone who exceeds their authority, they will definitely do so. Being accused by people from other forces, they may even join forces to suppress them. Ever since, the peace here has been preserved silently. After all, prosperity needs stability. If there are any wars or battles here, it is likely that the prosperity here will plummet immediately, and even take a few years. You won't be able to come back for hundreds of thousands of years, so the forces here really value safety and do not allow any battles or even conflicts to occur. In the entire prosperous place, people come and go, and whether they are strong or not, they will be extremely safe here. Even the life of a small businessman at the prefecture level will be protected here. Under a virtuous cycle, the people of this large area will be safe. The prosperity has been preserved. It's really boring. We have been police officers here for more than 500 years. It feels like my strength has stopped improving after it stayed at the galaxy level. It seems that if I don't fight with strong people, I won't be able to do anything. It's possible to improve, that's true. Within the Aida territory, 2 primary level creatures from the galaxy bear the logo of the police system and work hand in hand to inspect customs affairs. Of course, for them, they are still the first level powerhouses in the galaxy. They don't need to do small things. They are just here to defend against the powerhouses who may come to cause trouble. The galaxy level serves as an inspection officer in the police system. This level is enough. It is more than enough to handle ordinary trivial matters for strong people. As for the more terrifying existences, there will naturally be more powerful people to manage them. What's more, people who are stronger than them will generally have the consciousness of being strong, and they can't be found in small characters like them when things happen. Besides, their ability to divide and conquer the Aida territory for so long relies on more than just management ability. Among the forces that can get a share of the pie here, which one doesn't have a powerful territory lord? Therefore, ordinary strong people, even if a domain lord comes, as long as they understand the energy and strength of this place, they will become good babies to avoid being slapped in the face by other strong people. Who? When these two first-level police officers inspected a certain batch of caravans, they suddenly felt a burst of subspace fluctuations more than 10 million kilometers away. Such a strong subspace fluctuation. Could it be that some galaxy-level powerhouse with subspace talent has arrived? One of them didn't know much about subspace talent, but he had received a lot of subspace talent visitors, so he immediately thought that this should be a galaxy-level subspace talent. However, the expression of another partner beside him suddenly changed at the same time. No, it's not just the galaxy level. This is the domain lord level subspace talent existence. Quick, report to the above, there is a domain lord level subspace talent coming. What? Territory lord level. Oh my god, it is rare for us to have a domain lord level subspace talent here. This kind of existence is too troublesome. The last time there was a similar existence, it seems that it was the three major territory lords. Pei Tong, right? The arrival of such a guy is enough for our entire force to suffer, which is very uncomfortable. The faces of the two primary creatures in the galaxy suddenly changed. They quickly took out their respective communicators and contacted the people above them. That's right, even though they are colleagues, they are not from the same force. Of course, this also proves the extent to which the forces in the Aida territory lord are integrated with each other. Even if their respective forces have other bases in the outside world, and may even be at war at this time, it will not affect their cooperation in the Aida region. Even the creatures here, even if they are not under the jurisdiction of the same force, will not be affected. They feel that they are just creatures from the Aida region, and they don't have much affection for the forces behind them. This is why the native creatures here can cooperate well with different forces. Toot toot. It didn't take long for the communication to be picked up. The primary creatures of the galaxy from the two major police systems looked at the subspace passage that was gradually opening from a distance, and their expression slowly changed. When they connected to the communication from above, the subspace channel in the distance seemed like the Earth was falling apart. The merchant ships and powerful men passing by were all stunned, and then they hurriedly fled away as if they were afraid of being affected. And the gap that opened to the greatest extent when the strong men of the two major police systems reported. There is a gap as big as a planet. The two primary creatures of the galaxy in the police system are thinking in their hearts. Are you opening such a big gap for demonstration? Or do you really have a planet inside subspace? How can it be? But when they were thinking about these impossible thoughts, they saw, like a slap in the face, a huge round thing suddenly flew out of the space. This circular thing has a diameter of more than 1,000 kilometers and is a planet in its entirety. My God, it's really a planet. How terrifying is the existence of this domain lord level subspace talent. Moving a planet into the subspace, how much powerful subspace control ability does this require? How much energy does that planet consume? The two elementary creatures of the galaxy were almost speechless. However, after they were stunned for a while, they quickly continued to report to their superiors on the other side of the communicator. With such a presence, and just the appearance of the appearance, they understood that they were not able to receive, nor did they want to receive, so they might as well hurry up and hand over the work, otherwise the other party would feel that they were disrespectful to Aida Deu and treat them. The two hosts were getting angry and they couldn't hold it back. Simply leave it all to the top. Puff. When the huge planet appeared suddenly, as if it appeared in normal space, all the creatures in the nearby starry sky were shocked. You may have seen a magic trick that changes the planet a lot, but a planet-changing magic trick is really rare to see a few times in a lifetime. After all, although 1,000 kilometers is not a long time, if it actually appears in front of you, it will appear in this sudden way, which will definitely shock countless creatures. Of course, it was just a shock for a while. Not to mention the creatures in the central star field of the Milky Way, even in the Orion Arm, they already had the technology to fight with war planets. So after being shocked for a while, everyone figured out that this should be a strong person with a certain subspace talent, or some kind of performance art performance in the Ada realm, will be relieved. Just observing the creatures on this planet, there are naturally a lot of them, because they are so eye-catching. If it was really a commercial performance or something, it would be considered a success. Unfortunately, this planet is obviously not here for commercial performances, but a real strong man is riding here. The planet also understood that his swaggering appearance was bound to attract the attention of local forces, so he did not move, just standing in the starry sky, waiting for someone to contact him. Not long after, 3 giant figures suddenly rose into the sky from the border area management location in the starry sky, drawing a beautiful straight line and arriving at the planet with a diameter of more than 1,000 kilometers. These are the 3 major domain lords, and they are obviously not unknown people. As soon as they appeared, the nearby merchant ships and strong men all greeted these 3 major creatures respectfully, while the other ordinary creatures stopped one by one. Action shows respect. I don't know which friend has arrived in our Aida territory. The 3 of us represent the 3 major forces in the northwest corner. We welcome your arrival. Among the 3 domain master creatures, one calmly made a kind voice to the powerful aura on the planet. Although they don't really like the arrival of a domain master with subspace talent, they can't refuse customers when they open their doors for business. This won't last long, because for every starry sky creature, there will always be someone they don't like. That's right, no one would be welcome. Good 3. When the territory lord spoke, the planet that flew out from the subspace also responded. This planet is filled with dense clouds. Apparently the owner doesn't want outsiders to see more of his home, so he blocks the scenery inside. After hearing the sound, the 3 major domain lords all breathed a sigh of relief. They were most afraid that the visitor from this planet would be a hostile existence, which would make it difficult to communicate. Are you coming to my Aida star territory for purchase, or are you here to sell and trade certain goods? The territory lord continued to speak cautiously. Let's trade. Of course, if you don't have what I need, the scale of this transaction won't be too big. You don't have to go to such trouble. I won't do anything to you. On the planet, the calm voice didn't show much friendliness, but it was definitely not hostile, it was just a business-like tone. Haha, Your Excellency, this is the rule here. You don't have to worry about us. We are open for business. Besides, you are such a powerful being. Of course we have to entertain you well. Even if you don't buy anything, we will be in the future. Friend. The 3 territory lords tried their best to express goodwill. But that's not what they think in their hearts. You must know that ordinary territory lords do not receive such treatment. If they were not territory lords who were much stronger than ordinary territory lords, or territory lords with some unique talents, it would be impossible for so many territory lords to follow them all the way. The other party was a creature with subspace talent. They knew it just now, but when they came in front of this creature, they felt that it seemed that things were not that simple. It is true that the territory lord with subspace talents is right, but this strength. It seems a bit scary. The opponent is obviously hiding his strength, but even after hiding his strength, he seems to have the appearance of a domain lord, so his original strength might be at a higher level than a domain lord. And at the same time as this terrifying strength, it also has subspace talent. You must know that the existence of subspace talents is recognized as the most effective in the galaxy. The only thing that can be compared with it is the existence of the gravitational wave system. Moreover, the gravitational wave system must rely on God. In some places, the gravitational waves are relatively strong, which makes it easy to run. But in some places, where the gravitational waves are not strong, the organisms in the gravitational wave system will be affected and their performance will be unstable. However, there is no subspace talent. There is a group that is stable everywhere. It seems that except for a few superstars, no other place can affect the creatures with subspace talent. That's why they were even more worried. The strength of this visitor seems to be more terrifying than they imagined. If an ordinary subspace talented domain master is not afraid of such a huge alliance of forces like Shiyuan, then if the opponent is a subspace talented domain master who is stronger than ordinary domain masters, then the problem becomes even bigger. If such a domain lord has a conflict with him, it will be a disaster for such a prosperous trading place, because he alone has the ability to cut off most of your entire trade. It can be said that the losses will definitely be huge, and the problem is that they can't catch him yet. Therefore, as soon as the three domain masters sensed each other's power, they quickly adopted a more respectful attitude. On the one hand, it was because of the other party's strength, and on the other hand, they were really afraid of any misunderstandings or conflicts. Since you are here to trade, please come with me. However, Your Excellency, such a big planet is inconvenient. Why don't we meet and talk while walking? I'm actually quite curious about the way to practice in subspace, so we can communicate. The territory lord hurriedly faced the strong man under the planet and politely asked him to leave the planet. Okay. Vertex. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2404. Okay. After that, a huge creature the same size as them flew up from the planet. They couldn't help but take a closer look at this powerful creature. It looked like a giant insect with a dark appearance and 6 slender and powerful legs. What a terrifying subspace strongman, and according to me, his melee combat is not weak. Jiang, I can't even see the specific strength. Forget it, don't offend such a being. If he wants to buy something, just borrow money or sell him at a loss. You can get it later, speak nicely. That's natural, we are not fools. The three territory lords quickly used their brainwave power in private to determine the policy for dealing with this territory lord. My friend, go this way. Not only is our commercial planet along the way, but there are also nice scenery to see. We will be your guide. Several people led Jia Yan forward together. Of course Jia Yan knew what the other person was afraid of, and he actually wanted to laugh in his heart. These territory lords are probably on defense right now. Unfortunately, you have also missed my hidden strength. If you knew my hidden strength, I am afraid that none of you would do such superfluous things. Jia Yanting wanted to use his brainwave power directly to let them know how strong he really was, so as not to have to test them and make them defensive like me. Once the brainwave power comes out, their strength will be clear at a glance, and they will be less careful, because no matter how they defend or calculate, it is impossible to withstand their own attacks. It's a pity that Jia Yan doesn't want to be such a straightforward pretender. The way of showing off is too simple, and he doesn't even look like a strong person. He is such a novice. Is he, Jia Yan, such a superficial person? So it's fine to hide their strength, as long as they don't slow down their schedule. Thinking about the time, it must have taken a long time for the black sheep to get the news, and then he would have to rush to the Zerg Queen's power. Oh no, he might not dare to go. After all, if the intelligence said that, this mysterious subspace domain lord might be there, and Black Sheep might have to invite someone, and then have a meeting or something. After all this calculation, there is still plenty of time, so don't rush, just take your time. Jia Yan became quite indifferent. They could say whatever they wanted to say. He just happened to experience the feeling of being watched and feared by many domain masters, which was actually quite refreshing. As mentioned before, Jia Yan has just been promoted to the Territory Lord level. Although he is strong, he has only just experienced the feeling of being respected and guarded by the Territory Lords. Naturally, he needs to experience it more. Don't think that the strong will not be so idle, because the process of becoming strong is too difficult. It is to pretend to be cool in front of this kind of existence that is only a little worse than yourself, and then enjoy being feared by the existence that you were extremely afraid of before. They're fun. Anyway, that's what Jia Yan thinks. He has been hunted down by domain lords too many times in the past. Now he can finally pretend to be a big shot in front of ordinary domain lords. Naturally, he has to have enough fun. If there was a chance, he would also feel the feeling of chasing a territory lord to see if it was similar to the feeling of being chased by a territory lord when he was in the middle level of galaxy. This can be done. Jia Yan made a decision and immediately thought that he must do it once for fun. As for the person to pursue, he actually found a very suitable person right away, Black Sheep. This guy used to brag so much and still didn't take himself seriously. Even in the last battle, he won a small amount. Unfortunately, everyone could see at that time that his victory was only because of the rules. If he continues to fight, he will definitely be killed by the Black Sheep. After all, at that time, he had just been promoted to the top of the intermediate galaxy, and Black Sheep was the territory lord. Although he was also a new territory lord, his strength was not comparable to that of ordinary territory lords, but he was still a territory lord. So I couldn't count what I did last time, so I would be more comfortable if I did it again. And the so-called pursuit is not just about chasing and killing. He is not a child, playing such tricks. Since it has the word kill, it must be killed. Jia Yan didn't have the slightest psychological obstacle. This guy has thought about killing himself before, and he is even more troublesome within the Zerg Queen's forces. He wanted to usurp the throne at the beginning, and now he has done it directly. Just such a thing, Jia Yan can't forgive him. Therefore, it is impossible for Jia Yan to feel even the slightest bit of guilt for killing him. Don't rush to lead the way. I have a list of the supplies I need here. You can read it and take me there. Actually, I'm in a bit of a hurry. Jia Yan calmly looked at the several territory lords who were eager to show their good intentions, and without being too secretive, he directly threw out the list that the Zerg Queen said in his hand. There are actually several lists given by the Zerg Queen. They are based on the best results, then the second, and then the lists of the ones that are barely used. But Jia Yan didn't care about anything else and directly threw out the list with the best results. Although the Zerg Queen and others might just be asking not to be so arrogant, Jia Yan's current strength is different, so naturally he wants the best for what he can get. Otherwise, the Zerg Queen would look for supplies in person, but later find some that are barely usable. The Zerg Queen and the others understand, but Jia Yan himself doesn't understand, so where can I show off my face? Oh, this resource is. Several domain masters have been in the prosperous trading place for a long time, and they have come into contact with too many products. It can be seen at a glance that the materials on this list are all composed of medical drugs. In this way, how can they? I don't know, this creature is here to help a friend or subordinate, looking for medicine. Judging from the composition of the medicine, they could all tell that this being should also be a domain lord level, because some of the medicines would not be used until the domain lord level. Unexpectedly, a subspace talented domain master also has a good friend at the domain master level behind him, and that friend was injured, so the subspace talented domain master could actually go out in person to help get the medicine. In fact, they really want to say that such a good subdimensional friend should also be given to them. After all, the existence of subspace talents cannot be measured by ordinary strength. Although you can defeat some of them, you don't dare to offend them, because even if you defeat them, they are difficult to kill. And with the opponent's mobility, you can defeat the entire force. Being dragged down by it is the disgusting and terrifying thing about people with subspace talents. With such a friend, even if your ability to fight head-on is not very strong, others will look up to you. Unfortunately, they do not have such subspace talents as friends. The key is that there are still few creatures with subspace talents in the first place, and it is also difficult to upgrade them. Sir, we have more than half of the medicines you want here, but the price may be more expensive. The other part needs to be transferred, and there are even a few items that are not available even if the supplies are transferred. After reading it, a domain lord breathed a sigh of relief knowing that this subspace talented being was here to buy resources. Such a being should not be sincerely looking for trouble. But there is also a problem. People should be eager to use these resources. If they can't find them, it may be a contradiction in their hurry. Creatures with subspace talents also understand their status in the starry sky, so they are confident and always do domineering things, such as slapping another domain lord in front of a group of domain lords to prevent him from coming to the stage. Kind. Fortunately, the mysterious domain lord in front of him is not the kind of domineering being. Jia Yan was just slightly startled, and then became a little depressed. Look, is there any solution? I really want this kind of resource. If it is available, price is not an issue. Price is not an issue, but do you dare to try charging a subspace domain master more money? Anyway, the domain lords of this large domain in front of them have no such idea at all. They are eager to find what the other party wants and then send this plague god away. But the problem is, they really don't. Friend, we really don't have these supplies. Even if we know where some of them can be found, it's not a good relationship. Alas, the three domain masters looked ugly. Their goods are relatively complete. After all, they are a famous distribution center in the central star field of the Milky Way. If you really want to look for it, you can even find some important materials on the edge of the Milky Way. It can be said that there is a dazzling array of everything. But the problem is that some of the supplies that the Zerg Queen needs are actually monopolized by other distribution centers or merchants. Even if they have powerful means, they can't buy them, right? This is a business rule. Just like in their distribution center, some of their products are monopolized and cannot be found in other distribution centers or wholesale centers. Oh, I see. Your Excellency, please help me find out where I can buy all the scarce supplies recently. Please tell me, this is very important to me. Things changed, and Jia Yan's temper started to get a little bad. Because he had already agreed with the Zerg Queen and the others that he would be able to go back immediately, and the Zerg Queen's forces were indeed very changeable. If he was slow to go, his clones might not be able to withstand many situations. So Jia Yan became a little angry. Sir, don't be angry. I also know that your supplies are definitely for life-saving purposes, but it's useless to rush. Let me take a look at your supplies. It's really not me who is asking you. Frustrated, but look, several of these materials are monopolized by several distribution centers and large merchants, and are scattered quite far away. Look, should you buy them from another source? I think you're in the list. Many items can be replaced with slightly weaker resources, so these are easier to find. The territory lord was facing Jia Yan's wrath. For some reason, the subspace territory lord, who had just felt that he was not much stronger than them, actually exuded a power that frightened even him, and immediately made him frightened. He understood that the strength of this territory lord was really unfathomable, and might not be nearly as powerful as the strongest person in their distribution center. And he is also a domain lord of the subspace. If he really has that kind of strength, I am afraid, even a mid-level domain lord would feel a headache for him, right? God, what kind of lord is here? This territory lord felt extremely unlucky. They welcome the territory lord, but they do not welcome this kind of territory lord. If they get angry at every turn, their entire distribution center will be in danger. Let my friend use a weaker treatment plan? Ha, brother, I'm afraid you don't know that I, Mr. Jia, are not that kind of friend. Could it be that you want Mr. Jia to be unfaithful and unjust? Jia Yan suddenly looked at the territory lord in front of him with an extremely cold voice, and a hint of anger seemed to flash out from his cold compound eyes. No. Mr. Jia, please don't be angry. Actually, we have a better plan. It's just that this plan requires you to discuss it with some of the top adults in our distribution center. Suddenly, another territory lord standing aside quickly intervened. He could finally see that the coming subspace domain lord was just as they imagined, an extremely troublesome existence. Fortunately, he was not so careless just now, at least he was more polite, otherwise he would use this excuse to make excuses. Trouble, they are not allowed to cry to death. What plan? Tell me quickly. My friend is still seriously injured waiting for me. Jia Yan looked at him. It's like this, my friend, you also know that although these products are scattered, our large distribution centers, as well as chambers of commerce and the like, all have an alliance, in which there is some kind of special ultra-long distance folding transmission method, but the resources and costs required for this are massive, and this matter is not something we can make a decision on. Why don't you wait a moment, and I will convey your difficulties and requirements to the superiors, and we will be there soon. A superior from above is here to see you. The domain lord's words were explained by Shiyuan, but they also contained a hint of threat. At least Jia Yan could tell that the boss the other party was talking about was definitely a stronger existence than them. And such existence, except for the senior strong men of various forces in the galaxy that Jia Yan knew during his prior investigation, was also there is no one else. This is an existence on the same level as Jia Yan. But he had nothing to be afraid of, so he nodded calmly. Okay, tell them to come quickly. My patience is limited. If I miss my friend's treatment time, you know what the consequences will be if you anger a space genius. The expressions of the three domain lords suddenly changed. Now, this subspace domain lord who was relatively normal just now actually used arrogant behavior, which made both parties feel tense. But they didn't say much else, and they didn't want to ease the atmosphere, because judging from the aura, this guy was stronger than the three of them. If the three of them joined forces, they wouldn't be as strong as each other, so it was best to leave it to the higher-ups. After it was done, they really couldn't control the situation. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2405. The four territory lords were flying in space like this, but no one said a word, making the situation a bit embarrassing and a bit dangerous. Jia Yan looked at the three domain masters. These three guys had been playing with the communicators in their hands. He knew that they were sending signals and so on, so he didn't care so much. When such a big business comes to my door, it seems like I'm here to collect debts. Why bother? I'm really here to do business, okay. Jia Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, he is also thinking that his way of acting and speaking should also be changed. If he has developed a domineering way of doing things, he will be fine in this area now. If he encounters a stronger person in the future, or returns to, this is also true in the black hole area, as well as in the relatively strong places in the central star field of the Milky Way, which would be a big problem. He doesn't believe that there is no intermediate domain lord in the central star field of the Milky Way. So now I have to preview. If a more powerful domain lord level expert comes later, he will say that he is a little less tough. Otherwise, if he gets used to this way of speaking when he encounters strong people in the future, he will be asking for his own death. Boom. Not long after, a creature about the same size as Jia Yan's body, no, or should be said, a head bigger than Jia Yan, rushed out from a large prosperous place ahead. Jia Yan's current physical body is actually about the same as that of an average territory lord. On the other hand, other senior territory lords, as long as they are not deliberately shrinking themselves or due to racial issues, are generally bigger than Jia Yan. This friend must have just arrived. How about I guide you and introduce him? This domain lord level existence did not use his brainwave power to give Jia Yan a showdown, because he knew that it would be useless even if he won the brainwave power competition. He is a subspace talent. The existence cannot be compared like this. Unless it is overwhelmingly powerful compared to the opponent's brainwave power, it will be difficult to impress a subspace gifted creature. Oh, it's my honor to have you lead the way. Jia Yan looked at this territory lord, then at the other territory lords around him, and responded calmly. Then, the three territory lords did not leave, but just distanced themselves, keeping hundreds of kilometers away from Jia Yan, allowing the huge territory lord who came to walk alone with Jia Yan. There is no interaction between them, and even if there is, it must be through brainwave power. Jia Yan is not a super boss, so even if he wants to detect the same level of brainwave power communication, it is difficult for him to do so. Sir, it seems that you are not from our area. Did you travel here from afar? Yes, I traveled here from afar, but my friend was injured, so I came to disturb your distribution center. I wonder if you can get what I wanted before? I really don't have that much time. Running around. Jia Yan said calmly. The huge domain master looked at Jia Yan again, and did not feel any fluctuations in the tone of this subspace talented creature. It seemed that he cared a little about him, but it did not seem to care that much. After all, such a subspace domain master the Lord exists. When I first saw him, I felt that he was quite extraordinary. Originally, this territory lord came to calm down the situation, but here comes such a terrifying subspace territory lord. As the strongest leader of a certain force here, he naturally needs to come forward to meet with the other party. If it would be best to use strength to suppress him and stop him from making unreasonable demands. It is a pity that now it seems that this subspace domain lord is obviously not something he can suppress, and he feels that even if other senior domain lords in this star domain are dispatched together, it seems that they will not be able to suppress him. Live in this subspace talented domain master. Originally, the existence of subspace talents is more difficult to deal with than other talents. The strength of this domain master does not feel weak, so it is natural for him to perform like this. Your Excellency, they must have told you before that there is no way we can do it here, but this method may cost us a lot, so we won't use it easily. The other party had nothing to hide and told him about his difficulties. At least until now, the two sides are relatively equal. Even though this strong man with subspace talents is more difficult for them, they are definitely not afraid of him. If they really want to start a war, they have crossed the river here. A man as strong in numbers as a Crucian carp is completely unafraid of the subspace talent that exists alone. It's just that when they opened their doors for business, they were afraid of such powerful subspace talents who were difficult to kill. If they really started to cause trouble, the business in their distribution center might suddenly plummet and it would be difficult to recover for hundreds of years. Let's talk about the price. I think if it's appropriate, I'd be willing to make amends. Jia Yan looked at the senior territory lord, then looked at the positions of the other 3 territory lords around him, and understood. The 3 domain lords are surrounded. If they really take action, they will delay Jia Yan for a while, so that they have a slight chance to drag a strong man like him to death in this area. It's a pity that what they thought was very good, but all the premise is based on the assumption that Jia Yan is weaker than the senior domain lord in front of him. Jia Yan's actual combat effectiveness, even with a powerful senior domain lord, may not be the same. It's not even close, but for an average senior domain lord, he really doesn't give up. Moreover, as long as he finds an opportunity to enter subspace, he will be the enemy's biggest headache. Fortunately, he didn't want to fight. When the Zerg Queen's forces were still in danger, if he rashly made enemies with other strong men and couldn't obtain healing resources quickly, then he would be a disqualified partner. Are you willing to make amends? The senior domain master read Jia Yan's meaning from Jia Yan's words, looked at him with a hint of friendliness, and then nodded. Actually, it's not that we really want something, but if you want to obtain those materials quickly, the only way is to have the most cutting-edge technology in the central star field of our galaxy. The skill of long-distance teleportation. This skill uses the latest folding technology, which directly uses space folding to send items from extremely distant places. There are many restrictions in this, even if we have used this teleportation method in history. There are not many methods, and they are all used to transfer relatively expensive materials. The things you want, to be honest, the value is not expensive. If it is to be transferred, I feel that the value is not significant, and you will bear it. There will be huge losses if materials are transferred. The meaning of what the senior domain master said is very obvious, that is, the materials delivered by Jia Yan are definitely not of that great value. Even if it can save the life of a friend, if the price paid is too high, then it is better to give up. This friend's life was saved. Anyway, for the strong men in the Interstellar, the only thing worth paying is their own strength. What others, including relatives and friends, get, in the end is almost meaningless. It's better not to pay so much for them. Jia Yan was silent for a moment. He could tell that the necessary price was probably quite high. Even a senior domain master advised him like this. He was afraid that if he really did it, it would drain Jia Yan's current wealth. But when he chewed his friend's words carefully, Jia Yan suddenly laughed. Yes, Jia Yan has indeed been alone most of the time in his life, and he also thinks that he likes to be lonely and is not good at getting along with others. But there is an exception to everything, and even people like him sometimes need friends and family. Even though Jia Yan has reached this point, he doesn't feel that he has lost all his emotions and desires. He often uses his avatars to look at his hometown, and then wakes up avatars everywhere to see old friends and so on. This is his philosophy of life. It's not a contradiction, but he is still a living thing, and living things still need some soul comfort after all. Not to mention, the Zerg Queen had helped him, and he later learned that the Zerg Queen had withstood tremendous pressure to hand over the original star core to him. At that time, he was still a star with an uncertain future. That's all, Queen of the Zerg. If you don't help such a friend who has had such a big influence in my life, I will definitely regret it in the future. As for resources, I don't seem to have gotten so much without much effort. At worst, I will find opportunities in the future. Go grab it again, but, just go collect it and come back. Suddenly, Jia Yan was relieved. His resources were not obtained with much hard work, but after intimidating a few forces, he became able to get so much. Friend, I will bear the price you mentioned. Have you seen this planet in subspace? It is full of supplies. I must have enough. Jia Yan said firmly. The senior domain master was startled, and then used his brainwave power to look at the subspace. Inside the subspace, Edisha's star seemed to understand Jia Yan's meaning, and opened up the power to block the brainwave power, and the mist became less dense, revealing a large amount of materials that were still being transferred inside. Supplies for an entire planet? And many of them are mid to high level, Gudu. The senior domain master was slightly shocked. He looked at Jia Yan again and realized that the guy next to him was probably more difficult to deal with than he thought. You know, under normal circumstances, even a senior domain lord like him cannot have such a huge amount of supplies, because even if they are senior domain lords, if they want to obtain supplies, they will usually use normal methods, and most of them will. It is also a high-grade material. It is not that they look down on ordinary materials, but it is too difficult to carry. But the existence of subspace talents around here is good. There are a lot of medium-sized materials in them, and they are so dazzling that it is hard to see what he is collecting them for. So the only explanation is one reason: this guy must have robbed forces, and judging from the variety inside, it seems that there are more than one force. Damn it, this guy is a very ruthless person. Next, you must make it clear to the people below and don't offend him. Otherwise, such a subspace domain lord who is robbing forces will also cause trouble here, with his familiarity. With the way of looting, I am afraid that this distribution center will encounter a major crisis rarely seen since its establishment. Well, Your Excellency, being your friend is really a blessing. In today's era, there are not many people who are willing to go out of their way for their friends. So we will try our best to help you. Let's use super. How about I only charge you for the teleportation? There must be a little bit of resources left on your planet. The strong man just took a cursory look and found that Jia Yan's mid to high level resources on the planet on the surface of Edessa were enough to provide super teleportation. It's just that he asked for more things. The super teleportation must be opened and connected in several places, otherwise there would be more points left. No problem. Jia Yan waved his hands, feeling a little happy inside. Because obviously, when the other party sees so many supplies, he thinks they are all his, but in fact, where is this? Most of his supplies, especially the valuable ones, have long been moved underground. So happy to work together. A pleasure to work with. The two parties reached a deal, which not only made Jia Yan happy, but also the nearby domain lords let out a long sigh of relief. They were quite afraid that Jia Yan would really fall out with them. If the subspace domain lord failed to catch them in a fight, they would probably become the target of a sneak attack if their strength could not match that of the other domain lord. After all, this was coming and going without a shadow. There is no trace of subspace talent, and it is really difficult to escape from being targeted by it. Fortunately, the senior domain master successfully negotiated with Jia Yan, and their crisis was resolved. Friend, we don't know your name yet. My surname is Jia, you can just call me Jia Yan. It turns out to be Brother Jia. Come on, let me guide you to the designated place to complete the transaction. The three domain lords relaxed their vigilance and gathered around him, and began to pay attention to Jia Yan. Now that the content of the transaction has been roughly completed, they also believe that such a strong man should not go back on his word. Moreover, even if he goes back on his promise, there is also a senior domain lord present, who is getting closer. They were originally domain lords, so they couldn't be killed in one blow. After a while, Jia Yan got along with these three domain masters who were relatively good at talking. After all, one party intends to make acquaintance, and the other party wants to complete the transaction. The relationship will naturally turn into good friends quickly. If this transaction is successfully completed, it's not that I won't be able to conduct more transactions with your region in the future, but I don't know if your region will still welcome me. I see a few friends who don't seem to be so impressed by my arrival. Like it? Jia Yan chuckled. A territory lord quickly shook his head. What are you talking about? Your Excellency Jia Yan, our previous behavior was not that we did not welcome you, but that you are a subspace territory lord, and your strength is too amazing. We are somewhat normal. It's normal to be vigilant, right? If we have a trading relationship with you and establish trust, things will naturally change. We welcome high-level people like you to do business with us. Vertex. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2406. Yes, we are open to do business. How can we refuse customers? Are we fools? The three ordinary domain masters all smiled. Jia Yan keenly discovered that the senior domain master was a little behind them, but he just smiled and did not come up to talk. Hey, to be honest, Jia Yan kind of likes this big domain. Everything is quite perfect, and even the vigilance methods are relatively mature. It must have been a routine that has been operating for a long time and gradually evolved into such a reliable transaction. Oh, he is still satisfied. If there is a chance, it is not impossible to make friends with them in the future. After all, Jia Yan still needs to shop and trade. Otherwise, it will be tiring and difficult to collect the materials to become stronger by himself. It is better to find a reliable professional place to do it. I must not dare to deceive myself here. The senior domain master didn't speak, just watched everything about Jia Yan from a distance, and then felt that this subspace strongman must have figured something out, and his eyes towards them softened, which made he let out a long sigh of relief. Jia Yan still put a lot of pressure on him. Xin Hao really didn't come here to cause trouble, otherwise this battle would be difficult to win. Ahead of us is a former slum in our great domain. There are no large tracts of interstellar matter accumulated in one place. That is an ancient memory. Now this spontaneously built area has become a scenic spot, allowing many families to remember the past here. The scenery is actually the best in the entire region. A domain master introduced it to Jia Yan, feeling a little proud at the same time. Jia Yan followed his gaze and saw in the distance a starry sky residential area larger than the earth. It can be seen that when this place was first built, it was a chaotic structure, but now it is different. The later skilled craftsmen spent their efforts to make use of the original structure. The structure, transforming all parts of the area, a large number of scenery, and turning unreasonable places into ingenious scenery that is difficult to see elsewhere. In this way, the originally unreasonable places have become unique scenery, and it is very easy to it is so refreshing. Good. Jia Yan looked particularly at some of the interstellar matter that seemed to be floating in the air. Some of the water on it was pouring downwards, and then rolled into other interstellar matter below, rippling a lot of water mist. It was very spectacular. It was really somewhat excited. But looking at his own body and measuring the size of the landscape, he wisely gave up the plan of going up there to play, because the interstellar matter was not necessarily as big as himself. There are a large number of buildings lined up in rows, just here and there in the starry sky. There are a large number of residents living and producing in the buildings. Many of them saw the huge powerful men flying around in the sky and looked at them with astonishment. These are all relatively weak residents in the local area. After all, not all of a real force is strong. The real number of beings that make up the core of a force are these residents with ordinary strength. It's so prosperous. Jia Yan sighed. It's not that it's prosperous, but he saw that those ordinary life forms have houses to live in and schools to study, and there seems to be a way for those who want to hit the path of the strong. This kind of place is really what Jia Yan thinks is prosperous. He had seen too many places in the past that were said to be prosperous, but in the end, the buildings were grander and the strong lived a more prosperous life, but the weak were like slaves. They lived their entire lives for the strong, without any trace of it. Opportunity. For those kinds of places, Jia Yan is not willing to call them prosperous. This distribution center is known as one of the top 100 distribution centers in the galaxy's central star region. It is not without reason. It cannot compare with those super large ones, but we still have our own style. After hearing Jia Yan's words, the three ordinary domain lords around him all looked proud. Not long after, both parties acted together and arrived at a geological planet about 30,000 kilometers away. On this planet, a large number of spaceships and merchant ships are rising and falling, filled with countless businessmen, tourists, and strong men who come here to search for supplies. If the previous prosperity was just a microcosm of this large area, then what is shown in front of us is a direct proof of the prosperity of this place. The 5 domain lord level beings seemed to have ignored the entire planet's defenses and flew directly into the planet. No one came forward to stop them. They must have been notified long ago. Ahead is our domain lord level shopping mall. You see, the amount of work is quite large. Jia Yan was guided to the outside of a supergiant building that occupied 1/5 of the size of the planet. This building is so terrifying. It covers an area of more than 6,000 kilometers and has 5 floors. It gives the planet an extra bulge for no reason. Tisk, tisk, when I saw this building, I almost thought of a giant star in the black hole area. Jia Yan clicked his tongue in surprise. However, after he said this, the faces of the 4 territory lords around him, including the senior territory lord, changed slightly. Your Excellency Jia, have you ever been to a black hole area? Have you ever entered a giant star? The senior domain master expressed great surprise to Jia Yan. Yes, I have entered the black hole area and also spent some time in the northern giant. Jia Yan nodded. He was not afraid of what he would think if he told this matter. He didn't believe it anymore. In such a large distribution center, no one would know the true face of the black hole area. If they didn't know, then there was something wrong, and they would be embarrassed. It's only right to call yourself one of the top 100. I didn't expect that Mr. Jia Yan actually fought hard in the black hole area. I have long heard that the black hole area is extremely rich, and there are 4 giant stars standing there. I have never had the opportunity to see it. I didn't expect that today, I actually saw it. I'm from the black hole area, and I'm a friend who has been to Superstar. The senior domain master looked at Jia Yan's expression and expressed even more surprise. Although he is a senior territory lord, he is just a strong man who has cultivated to the level of a senior territory lord in the nearby starry sky. Although I have always planned to go to the black hole area, I often did not choose to leave due to various concerns. His situation is actually the current situation of a large number of strong people. Even though they know that there may be a secret in the black hole area, which may even make them go further, not many people dare to act on their impulses. The most critical reason is naturally the casualty rate. Many of the strong men who went to hang out in the black hole area have not been heard from, and many of them were brought to the news by their friends and said that they died inside. As a result, many powerful people who were quite good in the outside world no longer thought of going to such dangerous places. The same is true for the senior domain master next to Jia Yan. That's a pity, Your Excellency. If you could enter the Superstar to train, maybe you wouldn't be as strong as a senior domain lord today. Jia Yan looked at him regretfully. But the topic changed. Of course, the black hole area and the giant star are not easy to mess around with. If you really enter it, the death rate will be high, so whether it is a loss or wisdom depends on different people's opinions. Jia Yan did not encourage going to the black hole area, nor did he say not to go. In this case, no matter what he said, there might be problems, so it would be better not to express his position. Maybe he mentioned the danger, maybe he got great benefits as soon as he entered the Black Land, and then embarked on a smooth life of pleasure and revenge. Maybe he said it was not dangerous, but if others entered it, they might be killed by a strong person immediately. Therefore, Jia Yan never mentioned persuading people not to go, or persuading people to go immediately. Anyway, strong people are not children. They have their own decisions. What they choose is their own business. Inside the huge building, Jia Yan and the others walked into it with a swaying step. It is very big, and a creature at least 50 kilometers in size will not feel crowded or uncomfortable if it enters it. This is extremely rare in the normal starry sky. Friend Jia Yan, please take a look. No matter on the first floor or the fifth floor, there are good things. This is because almost all of them are good things specially provided for the mid-level powerhouses in the galaxy and above. Each floor will be in demand by the Domain Lord powerhouses. Supplies. A Domain Lord smiled at Jia Yan. Although they had agreed that they would help Jia Yan obtain those supplies, they did not say that they would not make other transactions with Jia Yan. If Jia Yan likes something here, it would be a profit. Jia Yan nodded and then looked around. You even have low-quality star cores? Your products are quite complete. Jia Yan was stunned when he saw an inferior star core. The star core is a good thing, but it's a pity that it is of inferior quality. Even if it is a low-level star core, Jia Yan can't consider it and take it into his pocket. Inferior star core, yes, we have it, but it's nothing. At most, it will only be noticed by the first-level powerhouses of the galaxy. If you look more, you may find more good things. Okay, let me take a look. The more he looked at it, the more surprised Jia Yan was. Because they discovered that it was just as the other party said. There was a dazzling array of supplies sold in this strong man's building, and there were all kinds of materials. Moreover, inferior star cores were indeed nothing. There were even more goods than inferior star cores here. Something better. This crystal-like stone actually costs so much money. Could it be something good? Jia Yan saw a certain huge crystal stone and the price on it. Although he was not very moved, he was a little weird. This is a blank energy crystal. It has this value for a reason. It is a rare stone that can absorb energy. For example, you often encounter places with relatively strong energy, right? But when you walk out there, don't you regret not practicing more in places with strong energy? For example, giant stars or black hole areas. At this time, the effect of this crystal stone will be reflected. If you take it out in those places, after absorbing the energy, wait until the outside world. If you take it out again, it will release its power. As long as you are around it, you can continue to enjoy the same training environment for a certain period of time. Of course, this has a time limit and the effect is slightly weakened, but it is still a good treasure. The Territory Lord looked at the blank crystal stone, as if tempting Jia Yan, and taught him earnestly. Oh, this is a good thing, but it seems, of no use to me. After all, I have been in an environment suitable for my cultivation. After Jia Yan suddenly realized it, he murmured to himself again, as if he was not too moved. Your Excellency Jia Yan, that's not what you said. The storage capacity of this crystal and its level may not be as much as you think. It may not be of great help to powerful domain lords like us, but think about it. This can be given to disciples or subordinates. It is an absolutely good thing for the existence of other forces. That's right. Can the price be negotiated? If possible, I will buy it. Jia Yan hesitated, then nodded, and started bargaining. How about I give you a 50% discount? 10% off. 93% off. 10% off. 9, don't look at me like that, okay. 10% off is 10% off. We really don't make any money at this price. Originally, he wanted to engage in a tug-of-war with Jia Yan, but the Territory Lord who was communicating with Jia Yan was frightened when he saw the ferocious look in Jia Yan's eyes. Yes, you are the subspace domain lord, you have the final say, as long as we don't lose money. He is really an uncle and is difficult to maintain. The Territory Lord felt like crying without tears. Jia Yan looked at him with satisfaction, then waved his foot inside the subspace. A crack opened, and a batch of supplies poured out. Looking at the value, it seemed to be about the same as the 10% discount on the crystal. You can ask someone to exchange these for you, and I'll take the crystals. Jia Yan waved his foot again, and the crystal, which was about as tall as Jia Yan, was taken into the subspace. Several major domain lords around him were shocked by his efficiency. This time the space creature bought something really extraordinary. After buying it, I threw it directly into the subspace. There was a planet waiting to be installed. It was so convenient. But this is also someone's own talent, and you can't even envy it. After Jia Yan restrained the crystal, his mood improved a little, and he followed the 4 domain masters and took action again. But after walking around the first floor, I didn't find anything good, so I went up to the second floor. There are no real stairs for you to go upstairs. For such a huge building, space is really precious. Find a bookstore, so to go to the second floor, you need to fly up outside the door. It looks like a building without stairs is average. On the second floor, I saw some of the supplies needed by the Zerg Queen. Jia Yan waved his foot politely and brought them into Edisha. In this way, it was just as they said. Jia Yan searched for more than 4 floors and found that some supplies were still missing. Your Excellency Jia Yan, over there is our material exchange office on the 5th floor, which contains super long-distance teleportation. Jia Yan nodded and, led by 4 domain lord-level experts, entered the inner room on the 5th floor. It's said to be a room, but it's actually not that big. Ordinary people on Earth would consider their own rooms to be about the same size, filled with equipment and instruments. There was already a strong man like a domain lord operating the machine here. After seeing Jia Yan's arrival, he stood up and greeted Jia Yan enthusiastically. He didn't show much after that, and just sat down and continued to operate. Vertex. Text download address. Phone reading.